Shabbat Shalom. This is the 9th month, the 29th day of the year on the Hebrew calendar. And we're getting ready to go into new moon tomorrow. I'm going to pray and we're going to begin our study. Let's go over to Zoom here. All right, I'm going to pray, y'all, and we're going to get ready to start our study. We're going to be studying the fig tree in Matthew 24. And we've also got a video, a real short video we're going to share that we found this week. Bonnie found it, and we thought it was interesting. It'll be of interest to y'all. And so I'll pray and we'll watch that first, and then we'll start our study. Abinu Yahuwah, we give all esteem to your name. We thank you, Father, for this time to be in fellowship and in study. It is a most Kodesh time of year. It is the feast of dedication, Hanukkah, and we are right in the middle of this feast. This is the 8-day feast of your year that is not sandwiched between two Shabbats. It's a half. It's half one side of a Shabbat and half on the other side of the Shabbat. And so it is 8 days, and it is a feast of dedication. We thank you for this time we are together and to study your word. We ask you to draw out what you want us to see in your word today. We ask you to prepare the hearts that will come and watch this video, Father. We always seek for the lost sheep, as your son did, Father. The lost sheep of the house of Israel, Matthew 15, verse 24. And so we ask for your word to go forth and to accomplish what you send it out to do, Father. Please open our eyes and our ears and our hearts to receive your word, that your word would go in and implant richly into the soil of our hearts, that it would not be able to be plucked up and die from having low, shallow roots, Father, that we would water that word, Father, in our hearts. And we thank you for all of your kindnesses, your loving mercy, your covenant kindness to us, Father, for your son, our Mashiach. We thank you for your protections and for your provisions. And we thank you for the week you've brought us through, for the month you've brought us through. And we ask for your barakot in our next week and in our next month and for our new moon, Father. In Yahushua's name we pray. Amen. Okay, I'm going to go and check out this. Let's see where we are here. Perfect, y'all. This is, it's on TikTok. This is _ascension with a T _project on TikTok. Bonnie found this video and she brought it to us. I thought it was noteworthy enough to share it, and I hope y'all will be Baruch by it.
So I was able to find this really old Bible, and even though the cover is not intact,
Can't see it, Della.
Moments away.
it has some.
You don't see the video. Okay, moments away.
Just
I know
me?
what
Is it just me?
it's not just you. Let's see. I believe I've got a share screen here. Moments away. We'll do it again. You see my screen?
Yes, got it.
Thank you. I'm not as top at this as Bonnie. She knows how to do this. Left, right, and center.
Yeah.
So I was able to find this really old Bible, and even though the cover is not intact, it has some really nice artwork in here. And probably one of the coolest things, but they give you the 1611 Bible right next to the 1881 Bible. And in between, that stands for in the year of the Lord, 64. They give you all the annotations of things that were changed in the Bible. And as we all know, you change one word, it can change the entire meaning of a sentence. So I'm going to go through here and see what exactly has been changed and why they might have changed it. Let me know if you guys are interested in keeping up. So I was able to find this really old Bible, and even.
Okay, Bonnie, I think we now need to go to your version of this, because this didn't get us all the way there. I'm going to stop share. This is on the fly. Bonnie's going to need to pull up the video that she showed us, which is from a different channel. We tried to get to the original source, so the video might not be as clear. Bonnie, are you close by? The rest of what he has to say is very important.
His
So
Bible from 1813.
Okay, so hang on one moment, please. Someone share sound. Ooh,
not
here we go. So this is the same.
Bonnie, I don't, yeah, that's the same guy, but I don't think that's the original video you shared with us, is it?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
So here we go. I'll make it big screen. And here we go.
This Bible from 1813 has something very interesting. It is a facts page that contains a list of people and events in chronological order. It says, whereupon we reckon that from Adam unto Christ are 3,947 years, 6 months and 10 days. And from the birth of Christ to this present year is 1814 years. Then the whole sum and number of years, from the beginning of the world unto this present year is 5,788, 6 months, and the said are 10 days. In the year 1814 the world really was 5,788 years old. This year, 2022, the earth would be approximately 5,998 years old.
That's it.
That's awesome. Thank you, Bonnie. That's awesome. That's what we wanted to share with y'all.
It's the one. So it's just a different space, but we went digging to see if we could find a source of further sources on it. Yeah.
It's interesting that in the book of Adam and Eve that Yahuwah tells Adam that mankind has to go through the 6 days, meaning a year is 1,000 days, or sorry, a day is 1,000 years, until reaching the 7th, which is a Shabbat, right?
That is amazing. And it's also amazing to think about the fact that these forefathers at the beginning, they were living like 900 years. So that was almost the first 1,000 clicked off. I wonder if they knew that man's lives would be more like 100 years old. That's interesting.
Well, they must have witnessed the decline of, their younger generation not living as long.
Well, when the flood happened, I think that's about the time, and everybody, I think the patriarchs had died off at that point. I wonder
In
which,
Psalms 90, verse 10, it ends up saying that you're given 70 years
Mhm.
70 or 80 years. So
Yeah,
I thought that was interesting.
that's far more the norm. Far more the norm. That by the 90s, most people have perished. All right, y'all. Hopefully that's interesting resources. I mean, it's great to see how much truth and restoration is happening. And at least, I don't know how many times people have asked me, what year are we in? Well, I don't know. I think we're close. I think we're close to the end of that 6,000. And if this video is accurate, if these numbers from this translation is accurate, then we've got 2 more years of the 6,000 to be complete. Pretty phenomenal. Let's go to our study. Bonnie, can we go to Matthew 24, please? We're just going to read a few verses in Matthew 24. We're just going to try to take on the fig tree today. There we go.
Okay, we're in. We've got YouTube live as well, so keep an eye on who's over there. And I'll just put a message in Facebook to say, come on over.
Thanks, Bonnie.
Reminder to everyone, go do that, go share far and wide the link so that, people can come and see what we do. It's important. We think what we do is very important, and I don't know. What do you guys think?
Sharing just takes such little, before we get into Matthew 24, I'm going to talk about the calendar a little bit anyway, but sharing takes such little effort. Thumbs up takes such little effort. It is a way to put forth the word of Yahuwah with very little effort, to participate, to come alongside us and help Yahuwah's word go forth. I mean, it doesn't, it's not even it's really not that much of a giving for someone to do. It's just align with putting the word of Yahuwah out there. Share it on Twitter, on Facebook, on Instagram, whatever, wherever you could share it. There's other things we share. Are we sharing the word? So I know everybody here is sharing the word. I see y'all sharing it.
Oh, and we have to say Shabbat Shalom, but we also have to say Happy Hanukkah.
Yes, that brings me back to the calendar. Happy Hanukkah. We prayed about Hanukkah. Is a time of dedication this time of the year. And Daniel talks about time, times, and half a time. Most Christians are familiar with that wording from Daniel, but it actually occurs twice. It's translated time, times, and half a time. But one of those two times in the Hebrew or the Aramaic, most of Daniel's in Aramaic. It's got to be in Aramaic then. But anyway, one of those two times it talks about moed, moedim, which is appointed time, appointed times, and a half. I think this is a timestamp for Hanukkah, because we have what would be the first moed, the first time, which would be the Passover week. And then we have the times, the second time, the second moed would be Sukkot. That's an 8-day feast. And then an 8-day appointed time with Yahuwah. And then we have the half, and Hanukkah is half on one side of a Shabbat, half on the other, whereas the other two are sandwiched between Shabbats. So I just think it's a time stamp for Hanukkah. Hanukkah is recorded in the book of Maccabees, which is in the 1611 King James, the first edition of King James, and along with the other apocryphal books which are there and not in our current translations usually, unless you have the Sefer, which you will find those books. A lot of people do have the Sefer now, so you can actually read those books there. Sefer also has a phone app. I think it costs about $30. You can get it right on your phone or probably your iPad or whatever other reading device you have, and you can read the story of Maccabees. If you haven't read it, I highly recommend it. It is not about the Jewish tradition of an 9-light menorah. That is a tradition that we have to kind of dispel. That story is not recorded of a miracle oil that lasts 8 days. What is in the book of Maccabees has to do with the martyrs of the Jewish people, and also those that were supernaturally delivered by Malachim, who came down and slaughtered their enemies. But these people went through horrible, horrible persecution. One mother in the book, or in the books, there's actually a couple different Maccabees. One mother watched the deaths of her 7 sons, and each of them saw each other die, the one prior to that one, and none of them would give up their binding themselves to the word of Yahuwah, to keep his word. So it's definitely a book that needs to be read. It is definitely worth knowing what can come to believers who stand with Yahuwah, and to just be emboldened in your belief to stand with Yahuwah. All they had to do was eat pork and not circumcise their babies, but the ones who did circumcise their babies were killed. And the ones who didn't eat pork, they were killed. A horrible, horrible persecution. But the people stood. Some of the people stood. Others caved, and they decided to take up the Hellenistic ways, and those were spared. So when it comes down to standing with Yahuwah, are you willing to be martyred for what you believe? Can you put your money where your mouth is on that? Will you stand and do the right thing? A lot of people haven't brought themselves to do the right thing yet because we've been taught wrong in the churches. So we have to get back to what did Yahuwah say and then do it. Just like Yahushua said, AKA Yeshua, AKA Jesus. He said that we stand and we do the word, not just hear it. And that when the storms come, our house will be like built on rock instead of built on sand. So we need to be not only hearers, but doers of the word, just like our Messiah said. Not only hearers, but doers of the word. That's what real belief is in Hebrew. And so to talk about the calendar a little bit, we're getting ready to go into a new moon. This is the last Shabbat of the month. You will not see a first visible crescent this evening. However, tomorrow night, you may see a first visible crescent. You may likely see a first visible crescent. New moon right now is a 1 or a 2-day event. It will begin tomorrow morning and it will end when we see the first visible crescent. That's the signal that says, hey, new moon is over, it's complete, and your first work day begins. So we're going into the 10th month, and we say goodbye to the 9th month right now. 9 is preserved in the Gregorian calendar as November. Nov, that's for 9. And the 10th month is preserved as December. Now we have a Gregorian calendar that's 365.2 something, 28, 24, 25, something like that, days a year. It's a solar calendar. And that was originally a 360-day, 12-month, 30-day calendar. But Yahuwah dented his clock. He moved the sun a little bit further away from us. So it became a 365-day calendar. This confused the ancient civilizations who were not following Yahuwah. It made a difference to them. We had Julius Caesar, 45 BC. I think it was 45, it could have been 46, 45 BC. You can find this in Wikipedia. He designed the Roman calendar without regard to the moon. So they lost their way with the moon, but Yahuwah created both the two great lights, the sun and the moon, for signs, appointed times, Moedim, for days and years. And so Rome started its own calendar, and it is the calendar we were all raised on. And it is not Yahuwah's calendar. And they don't regard the moon. They don't regard new moon. But if you'll look up tomorrow night, just after sunset, about 30 minutes after sunset, look for the first visible crescent. That tells you new moon is over. And the work week will begin the next day. The countdown. We have the 7th day Shabbat. It's always a 7th day Shabbat, but the week doesn't start until the morning after the first visible crescent. So that's enough on the calendar. If anybody has any questions, we're here to help. Just reach out. We'll answer you. And you learn the calendar by starting to observe the calendar. Start observing the moon. Start taking awareness of it. All right, that's enough on the calendar, y'all. Happy Hanukkah. Hag Sameach. Bonnie, I think we're ready for Matthew 24. Your mic is off if you're speaking.
That's fine. We want to know what we're trying to work out, and what's right and what's wrong, what's true, what's not, what's tov, what's low tov. That's our journey.
Restoring the calendar. Yeah. I had a couple of videos on the calendar on our previous Hebrew code searching channel, which when our channel was taken down, those videos obviously were lost from there, but I believe they are on Rumble, right, Bonnie? Rumble.
Yeah, they're on Rumble. Yeah.
They're on Rumble. You can look up Hebrew code searching on Rumble and find the calendar videos, and then I might get them back on here as well. That's probably a Tob idea when we have time to do it.
Let me I'll go and just show.
That's a great idea.
Show people what they look like.
Yeah, very great idea. I like how Bonnie's computer spells everything out in Hebrew for her.
It's just, yeah, it's weird. Yeah. So we're still there under Hebrew code searching. And all the older sort of videos are still there. Plus we'll continue to add. Oh, there you go. There's the Passover one for you, Rachel. To go have a look at what we were talking about before. And here they are here, restoring the true calendar of the scriptures, part 1 and part 2. So that's them. Go have a look at those, and that's Darla's teaching on the calendar. So over on Rumble. So there you go.
Yeah, that's very excellent. You'll also be able to find lots of Hebrew code searching videos there that were just approved on the current host site here that we're on today.
Yeah, we had lots and lots and lots of
Amazing videos, amazing, so valuable for people to see. A lot of work. It was almost a whole year's work for us. And I still encourage the students for their codes, if they will go watch them, and if we've said anything offensive to YT, that I can edit that out and I can get it re-uploaded. So that invitation is out. It won't take too much editing. I mean, we're talking about a statement here or there or yonder that was not okay. All right, so we'll get to Matthew 24. Does anybody want to read? How about Leah? Leah or Trisha? Somebody might want to read.
Well, good luck with Trisha. She might be
Yeah,
asleep.
we know that Trisha's a little bit sleep deprived, and we're allowing her to sleep on Shabbat here. All right, I'll read then. And learn this parable from the fig tree. When its branch has already become tender and puts forth leaves, you know that the summer is near. So you also, when you see all these things, know that he is near at the doors. Truly I say.
Oh,
Oh, that's okay.
Sorry, I popped over to YouTube just to check it out.
No
I
worries.
was trying to get back. You're gonna read?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and read. I'm halfway through it already. Yeah. I'm at verse 34. Truly I say to you, this generation shall by no means pass away until all this takes place. The heaven and the earth shall pass away, but my words shall by no means pass away. But concerning this day and the hour, no one knows, not even the messengers of the heavens, but my Father only. And thank you, Leah, for checking out our channel over there. Appreciate that.
I'm over there too.
Thank you, Bonnie. Yes, you're right.
Over there.
You're wearing so many
Wearing a
hats.
lot of hats. I'm wearing a lot of hats. Yeah.
All right, so we're going to be talking about this parable from the fig tree, and some of us here have looked into some materials that will be helpful for us to look at this fig tree, and found some amazing things that we're going to share today. And I think one of the things that was most profound to me was Teza talking about the fig tree in, was it Genesis 3, Teza? Can you talk to us about that? The first mention of fig?
Yes, I don't remember the first mention of it, but
I think that will be it.
yeah,
Unless one of the trees mentioned that. I think all the trees I think were encoded actually.
yes, that's my understanding. Yes, it first comes up in Genesis, and always wondered why they covered themselves with fig leaves.
Oh, hang on. Because they're big.
Yeah, so this was the first mention. I think it's in Genesis 3. We looked at it last week, or even maybe the one before that, as we thought we would get to it, but it turned out we didn't get to it. And we trust Yahuwah in what is spoken of each week. So we're getting to the fig tree this week.
I can try and find
Genesis 3, Bonnie.
yeah, I'll get Genesis 3.
Yeah, we'll
Important.
pull it up. So this would be the first mention. Of course, they're covering themselves after they've sinned. They're aware of their nakedness all of a sudden. So man decides to do what man does, which is try to cover up what he's doing. Doesn't want to be held accountable, just gonna hide it. And he's hiding from Yahuwah, of course, because he's done something wrong. He's eaten of the
Yeah.
fruit of the tree of the knowledge of Tob and Ra, evil. So it says here in verse 6, I'll start. And the woman saw that the tree was Tob for food, that it was pleasant to the eyes, and a tree desirable to make one wise. And she took of its fruit and ate, and she also gave to her husband with her, and he ate. Then the eyes of both of them were opened, and they knew that they were naked. And they sewed fig leaves together and made loin coverings for themselves. And so then, of course, they hide from Yahuwah. And then there's a blame game. Well, she did it. Well, the serpent did it. But Yahuwah had given them the commandment not to eat of this fruit. This was the only command he had given them. Am I right about that? The only command, don't eat this thing. They got one no. And now that how many negative commands are they in the 613? There's like a lot. Don't do this and don't do that and don't do that. You know, it's like he's got to be very specific with us because we will fall into sin if we do those things he says don't do. Or if we don't do the things he says to do. So verse 14 there, Bonnie.
Yep.
I just noticed said, and Yahuwah said to the serpent, because you have done this, you are cursed more than all livestock and more than every beast of the field. On your belly you are to go and eat dust all the days of your chai. And I put in, if it's the right word, chai for a serpent, I don't even know, but we'll say life there. And I put enmity between you and the woman, and between your seed and her seed. You'll notice that seed is capital in English, not necessarily in Hebrew, but in English it's capital. He shall crush your head, and you shall crush his heel. And so these are the words of the Mashiach in chapter 24, just before he's going to go to that execution stake. Staros in Greek, the word for stake. All right. So where do we go from here on the fig? This is the first mention, and it's covering man's sin. He's using this to cover his own sin, his own rebellion, his own wayward walk away from Yahuwah. So learn this parable from the fig tree. So how do we learn the parable from the fig tree? Do we want to check out the commentary on this verse?
Sure.
Let's do
I
it.
think it'd be good.
Two, wasn't it?
We'll see what some of the commentaries say about this parable of the fig tree. I know that Hal Lindsey, thank you, Father, for bringing his name to me again. Hal Lindsey talks about it in one of his books about this fig tree being Israel, aka Judah, that came back into the land in 1948, and that this generation that came back in 1948 would not pass away before Yahushua would return. So I know that that is one researcher in his word about it. So learn a parable of the fig tree. As in so many other instances, we may think of the words as illustrated by a living example. Both time and place make this probable. It was on the Mount of Olives where then, as now, fig trees were found as well as olives. So we've talked today about, before our live stream, about fig trees versus olive trees. We'll go into that. And the season was that of early spring, when the flowers appear on the earth and the fig tree puts forth her green figs. I think it was Rachel in here who was bringing up that the fig tree flowers not on the outside, right? Like you can't see it. So it talks here about the flowers appear on the earth, but the fig tree puts forth her green figs. We don't see the flower, it just produces the fruit. And what our Adon teaches is that as surely as the fresh green foliage of the fig tree is a sign of summer, so shall the signs of which he speaks portend the coming of the Son of Man. All right, let's see what Benson says. Our Adon proceeds to declare that the signs which he had given would be as certain an indication of the time of his coming as the fig trees putting forth. Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. Putting forth its leaves is of the approach of summer, and that the time of his coming was at no great distance. For he adds, this generation shall not pass till all these things be fulfilled. Well, that's all well and told, but he did say this about nearly 2,000 years ago now, hereby evidently showing that he had been speaking all this while only of the calamities coming on the Jews and the destruction of Jerusalem. It is to me a wonder, says Bishop Newton, how any man can refer part of the foregoing discourse to the destruction of Jerusalem and part to the end of the world, or any other distant event, when it is said so positively here in the conclusion, all these things shall be fulfilled in this generation. And it seems as if our Adon had been aware of some such misapplication of his words by adding yet greater force and emphasis to his affirmation, heaven and earth shall pass away, but my words shall not pass away. That is, heaven and earth shall sooner or more easily pass away than my words. The frame of the universe shall sooner or more easily pass away than my words shall not be fulfilled. Another place in Matthew 16:28, he says, there are some standing here which shall not taste of death till they see the Son of Man coming in his kingdom, intimating that the event would not take place immediately, and yet not at such a distance of time, but that some then living would be spectators of the calamities coming upon the nation. In like manner, I thought that had to do with the transfiguration. In like manner, he says to the women who bewailed him as he was going to be crucified, daughters of Jerusalem, weep not for me, but weep for yourselves and for your children, which words sufficiently implied that the days of distress and misery were coming and would fall on them and their children. But at that time, there was not any appearance of such an immediate ruin. The wisest politician could not have inferred any such thing from the then present state of affairs. Nothing less than divine prescience could have foreseen and foretold it. I'm not going to go through Matthew Henry's. It's just too long.
Yeah.
Well, let's go through what you guys have brought up, Bonnie. Your pages that you've got up there.
Yeah. Well, we had this one found by Rachel, the symbol from one for Israel, the symbolism of figs in the Bible. Which look, it's from 2016, so it's not that old an article. I wonder if I can make it a bit bigger. Do we want to read through it?
Yeah, I think we know it's short enough. We could read it. Do you want to read it, Bonnie, or does somebody else want to read
I'm happy to read it. Rachel, did you want to read it? It's your article.
Yeah,
Sure,
for
I can
reading.
do that. If you'll move it along for me as I go.
Yeah.
Okay. So Yah gives good gifts. When he gave Israel to the Jewish people, it was not just any old piece of land. Yah says in Deuteronomy 8, Yahuwah, your Elohim, is bringing you into a good land, a land of wheat and barley, vines and fig trees, pomegranates, olive oil, and honey. There are 7 species of food mentioned here, which would be abundant in the land promised to his people, and it is the time leading up to the Jewish holidays when many of them are ripe and ready to be eaten. There is so much richness in what Yah has created and placed in his land for his people, not just their good taste and nutrition, but in their meaning too. And the fig is a fruit that crops up again and again in the scriptures because Yah does nothing without purpose. The blessing of the figs. The man who checks bags for bombs on our transport system was eating juicy figs and gave one to me with a smile. There is something that just feels rich and decadent about figs, the amazing deep colors and the distinctive shape and glorious gentle smell. It is no wonder that this feature of Yah's creation crops up repeatedly in the Bible in wonderfully and symbolic ways. First of all, we see the figs in the Garden of Eden, covering up the shame of Adam and Eve. In fact, it's the only tree specified that we know for sure was in the garden. Throughout the scriptures, the plant becomes a symbol of prosperity, well-being, and security. along with the vine, to sit under the plentiful shade of your own fig tree is the epitome of safety, peace, and well-being in many biblical passages. These plants don't grow overnight. It takes time to culture and nurture them. Their maturity indicates that the gardener has been continuously and steadfastly there, tending to their growth over the years. For Israel, exile and wandering has been a byword for punishment. So sitting under your own vine and fig tree is a sign of blessing and security. The fig tree is a metaphor for Israel. The fig tree is also symbolic of Israel itself. It's often symbolized in the health of the nation, both spiritually and physically. Hosea 9:10 says, "When I found Israel, it was like finding grapes in the desert. When I saw your ancestors, it was like seeing the early fruit on the fig tree." Later, the Bible tells us of the glorious time when Judah and Israel lived in safety, under every man under his vine and his fig tree, from Dan even to Beersheba and all the days of Solomon. Later still, following the minor prophets, we can see warnings to the nation of how Yah would bring destruction and failure of crops as part of his judgment against them, specifying empty fig trees that were stripped bare and fruitless, Joel, Habakkuk, and Haggai. It's almost as if the fig was something of a barometer of health of the nation, taken away as punishment and flourishing in times of restoration. In the New Testament, we also see Yahushua using the symbolic fig tree, firstly in the calling of Nathanael, who was sitting under a fig tree like a true Israelite, in John 1:48-50. Later, he curses the fruitless fig tree, representing unfruitfulness, Mark 11:12-21. And then uses the fig as a metaphor of how we should recognize the signs of the times, Matthew 24:32. This end times warning system with the fig analogy is picked up again in Revelation 6:13. So from Genesis to Revelation, the fig tree or the fig features strongly in scriptural symbolism. There are many more interesting references not mentioned here, which are also worth exploring in Judges, Song of Songs, and Parables of Yeshua. Figs flourishing in Israel today. Today, Israel is full of figs, huge, well-developed, shady, and mature. They produce 2 harvests of fruit a year, the early crop around Passover time in the spring, even before the leaves have unfurled. And the biggest, best, most juiciest fruit come from their own in September, close to the Jewish holidays of Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, and Sukkot, Feast of Trumpets, Day of Atonement, and Feast of Tabernacles, respectively. It is possible to consider that the flourishing of figs today in Israel is a messianic sign in itself. The people are back in the land, the fig trees are abundant and plentiful, and the nation is now waiting for restoration to come. We know that the restoration will be a spiritual revival, and all his people greeting their Messiah Yeshua, saying, "Blessed is he who comes in the name of Yahuwah," or "Welcome Yeshua, our Messiah. Come, Messiah Jesus, Yahusha, and find us ready."
Wonderful, thank you. So
That's a great article. And then he didn't mention there about Revelation 6:13 in terms of just reading it. It says, "And the stars of the Shamayim fell to the earth as a fig tree drops its unripe figs, being shaken by a strong wind." Wow, what a visual on that. And again, we're looking at what he described here as a warning system from the Messiah. Wow, that's just so amazing to think about. So our Messiah has given us this fig tree metaphor as a warning system that we're to look for this. And so that's why we're studying it today.
Well, Yahushua is the gardener, isn't he?
Yeah, there was something there too about, there's the gardener. It symbolizes that the gardener is there and is looking after.
We know for sure it was in the garden.
Yeah, that was amazing to me. It's the only tree that we know for sure was in the Garden of Eden. That's amazing. Well, we know the other 2 were there because they were mentioned. But
Yes.
those aren't necessarily fruit available to us, right? Except for in the Word. The Word is called the tree of Chai. That's the one we're supposed to eat from, not the tree of knowledge of Tov and evil. so many people eat from the tree of knowledge of Tob and evil. More evil than Tob. People like crave knowledge, but they don't want to go to the word and get the word of Yahuwah. So it's
So can
low
I
to-
just ask?
yeah,
Sorry, Darla.
go ahead.
When it comes to it's saying here that it's a metaphor for Israel, the fig tree. I always thought, and this is a question that I posed before we went live, is the fig tree nation Israel? Yasharel? I thought they were the olive tree. That's just,
Can they be both?
yeah, I don't know. It's something I'm still searching out.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we talked about that too. To harvest. I'm not sure if we have a screen up, Bonnie, that talks about those two harvests. We talked about it before we went live.
Jewish Encyclopedia one, and there's another one there that says a pound.
We can go through them. We'll take what's there.
And this one in particular from the JewishEncyclopedia.com had an important sort of
Yeah.
message at the end of it here, so we don't miss what it says.
So Tez's question again, as we're thinking about this, is the fig tree representative of Israel? Or is it the olive tree? Or could it be both? Could it be different dynamics to both? So we just saw the last thing we were looking at that Rachel read that talked about the prosperity and the punishment of Israel attached to the fig tree, and how the scriptures talk about a Tob Israelite sitting under his own fig tree. Anybody want to read this for us?
And here too, we see a couple of, looks like transliterations of Hebrew words, but we can probably go and look up.
This word, I didn't mention it when we were looking at it before the live stream, but this reminds me, this te'ana word, which I'm assuming may have an ayin in there, with the apostrophe. I've found that sometimes translates to that. But there's a book by Doug Elwell called Planet X, the sign of the second coming of the Son of Man. I think that's generally the title. And he compares the historical Hebrew narrative of Noah and the flood, which we'll also talk about in Matthew 24, but I don't think we'll get to it today. It'll be coming up next. The times of Noah will be like what it's like at the second coming of Yahushua. But there's a word in there. I think it's Tiamat. He compares the scriptural account of Noah and the flood with Sumerian text and other ancient texts, but his book is different than most that would do such a thing. My ducks are nearby, you can tell. The cats are also, I bought them a bag of cat food on sale, and they're like, we're not having it, we're eating the dog food. So my dog food budget is going up quickly. The ducks, the dogs, and the cats are eating the dog food.
Oh, dear.
The comparison is his book is different than most because he goes with a primacy of the scriptures, the Hebrew scriptures, for the Noah account. But there's a word Tiamat, and it sounds very much like this word. So Teana.
Oh, I was just looking at Tiamat the other
So-
day. Yeah.
Instead of Aleph Tau, you've got Tau Aleph. And
Yeah.
Noon seed.
So Tiamat would definitely be a different word, but I think that it is perhaps it is a Hebrew word. I'll have to, if I get a chance to walk away, I'll look and see if I can put eyes on that book and pull it up. We did do a recording back in the day in 2016, which won't be on this channel, where we read through most of the chapters of that book. I read them, and he talks. The excellent thing about it is the seventh chapter, he compares these ancient Sumerian texts with the book of Revelation. And so now at the end of this, we've got like planet X, aka Nibiru, which also that word has ties to the Hebrew and means the crossing, Nibiru, which is very close to the Hebrew word for Hebrew, which is Ibri, Nibiru, Ibri. Those that cross over, the Hebrews, those that cross over. I'm giving you a lot of like word pictures associated. So this Tiamat, I believe, is a word from the Hebrew, but Planet X.
Darla, I
Yes,
just
ma'am.
looked up, I put in what is Tiamat in Hebrew, and it came up and said Tehom is a biblical Hebrew word meaning the deep. It is used to describe the primeval ocean and the post-creation waters of the earth.
Wow.
Huh.
Very
Primary
cool.
water. The deep, the great deep.
And if you are somewhat abreast of Nibiru, Planet X, he speaks about it in his 7th chapter, and he compares the book of Revelation with these other ancient Sumerian and so forth texts. And he believes that Nibiru is the throne of Yahushua, and it will come down, and it'll be in a sense sort of like the whole rapture concept. It will happen that the righteous will be taken up and the destruction will come down, kind of like a battery with two sides, and one happens while the other's happening, like simultaneous, that we will be spared the wrath of Yahuwah as we're going up. The wrath is coming down from Nibiru. So really cool, really great concepts. I love his research. It's an awesome book.
Is there a scripture that we can find that word Tiamat?
Leah, did you find a scripture, sister?
Where
On-
can
Tehom, I think she said Tehom.
Tehom?
Yeah,
Uh,
I'll have to see if I can locate the book. And if I can,
Sorry, I always have to come back and unmute myself.
no worries.
So it says, what is Tiamat in the Bible? She is the symbol of the chaos of primordial creation. She is referred to as a woman and described as the glistening one.
How do you spell it in Hebrew, please?
Okay, the post before that, where it says Tehom, it's Tehom. So Ta,
Can I give you a
Yeah.
scripture? Yeah.
would it be Aleph, Hey, Mem?
It could be Ta Hey Mem.
Right.
Did they give you a scripture, Leah? Where it's at?
I don't.
And
Okay, what does the deep mean in the? No, there's no. Let's see here. I'll see if there's a scripture.
It sort of sounds like the earth without form and void in Genesis 1.
Tehom, it says Tehom is mentioned in Genesis 1:2, where it is translated as deep.
Okay, let's look at that, Bonnie, real quick, please.
Tehom.
And in Genesis 7:11, as the origin of Noah's flood.
As the origin of, that's interesting. All right, Genesis 7:11. We can remember that one.
Yep.
And the first one was Genesis 1:2. That's right.
Genesis 1:2.
I think that's going to be Tohu Wabohu. Yeah.
Oh, right. That's what it's, yeah. That's what it sounds like.
Yeah, the formless there.
Yeah.
8414. We can look at that, Bonnie, while we're here.
Yeah.
So formless and void. You can see how it's sort of almost like a play on words, or the sound of it. Tohu Wabohu. formlessness, confusion, unreality, emptiness.
Waste, a howling waste.
Futile, vain. Formlessness of primeval earth. Empty, unreal, as idols, it says. Interesting. Title, from an unused root meaning to lie waste, a desolation. Oh, desolation. Well, there's an interesting word. Talking about the abomination of desolation last Shabbat, right? A desolation of surface, i.e. desert, figuratively a worthless thing, adverbially in vain, confusion, empty place, without form, nothing, thing of naught, vain, vanity, waste, and wilderness. Okay. Anyway, that's a huge sidetrack we just took. Sorry about that. But we go deep. We go deep into deep.
So what
No,
was
I think that was interesting because a lot of people just kind of picture that, you know, the earth and everything was created within the first 6
Yeah.
days. But looking deeper into it, the word is actually describing that the earth was already here. It was just barren and a wasteland.
brings back the idea of things going around and you know circling back and coming around again, doesn't it? And we don't know. We don't know.
Yeah, yeah.
Or
But he does seem to be revealing bit by bit more, you know, as things are going on. He does say that, you know, things will be revealed in the last days. And it seems like,
Yeah.
you know, little tidbits are coming out as we go along.
did we want to look at any of these other?
Well,
Jeremiah's-
I'd like to look at a specific one that Leah mentioned in Genesis 7:11. I think she said something about the flood came from it or something. So
Okay, was that here in
Yeah,
Genesis
Noah's flood.
okay, so Genesis 7:11. Okay.
that's still kind of on topic because we're going to be talking about Noah next week.
Yeah.
Some interesting parallelisms, analogies. I went to see Avatar, The Way of the Water with my children this week. And one of the Avatar children's names was Noach, and the way of the water. Well, very comfortable in the water. Tahom, there we go, of the deep.
Yeah, so it's 8415. We were looking at 8414, so it's the next word along.
And so it said there, yeah, the floods burst from the deep.
And in that, back in Bereshit, it actually says on that second day, is it? It's the second day. In the expanse, when it comes in the midst of the water, that's the only day that he didn't call it Tob.
Interesting.
Very interesting.
This
Okay,
is
so-
surging mass of water. Okay. Subterranean water supply. So from whom? Which is him or him to murmur, roar, defeat in battle. Interesting.
That's very interesting. It says it's got a primitive root.
Yeah. It's got only 5 occurrences though.
So you get a lot more information from about Genesis 6 or Genesis 1 rather, when we look at the Hebrew. To make an uproar or agitate greatly, destroy, move, make a noise, put, ring again. I've heard it said that it was a destruction, between verse 1 and verse 2. There
Do-
was some destruction.
Do we want to see command?
You can. To make a noise, move noisily, confuse, discomfit. Okay. There we go.
Break. Wow. Thanks. Put in commotion.
By implication, to disturb, drive, destroy, break, consume, crush, destroy, discomfit, trouble, vex.
So got Hamar there too. We haven't looked at. So we had Q, and we had
To home.
home and office.
Can we just look at the verse then, 7:11? I think we kind of didn't read it. So in the year 600th year of the life of Noah, in the month, the second month, on the 17th day of the month, on this day burst forth all the fountains of the deep. So that was the word of the deep, great, of the great deep, and the windows of the heavens were opened. All right.
And that's why I was told, or I'd heard or listened to, that that's why he didn't say that it was Tob at the end of the day.
Because,
Of the flood waters that ended up coming.
yep. So interesting. I didn't realize that. Okay, so we will get to the Noah stuff next week, Yahuwah willing. So Matthew 24, and we were still looking at the other things we wanted to talk about, the fig tree, yeah? Maybe you can close the ones that we've looked at, Bonnie, if that's helpful to you.
2 to 36.
When you're ready, I'll read, Darla.
Okay, thank you, Leah. Yeah, whatever she brings up next.
Yeah, so
We're talking again about learning this parable from the fig tree.
we
When its branches already
finished
become
the-
tender.
okay,
and quick to
we finished the one for Israel ministry one. We looked at the size of the fig leaves.
Yep.
So they were big. We had a quick look. We didn't quite read this one yet from Jewish Encyclopedia. Did we want to go? We looked
Yeah,
at
we could do that. Leah's volunteering to read.
yeah. Read away, Miss Leah.
You there, Leah?
Yep. Just
Great.
unmuting myself. Fig and Fig Tree by Emil Hirsch and Henry Hibernat. Okay, I gotta enlarge it a little bit. My aged eyes. The fig tree and its fruit are designated in Hebrew by the same word te'anah. Deuteronomy, Judges, Numbers, and Kings. The plural te'anim indicating the fruit as distinct from the tree. According to Lagarde, the fact that the name is not found originally in any other Semitic language indicates that the fig is indigenous to the territory occupied by the Hebrew Aramaic Semites. Ta'ana is the common term for fig. In a special sense, however, it denotes the figs which ripen in August and form the largest crop. The early figs appeared in March or April and ripening in June are called Bikura. In the Revised Version, this word, in accordance with its etymology, is uniformly rendered by first ripe fig. in Isaiah, Micah, and Hosea. The early fig was considered a great delicacy by the Hebrews. The late or green figs, which sometimes ripen after the fall of the leaf and occasionally remain on the tree during the winter months, are called peg, whence the Greek, whatever that word is, and then in brackets, the house of green figs. They are alluded to in Cant 13, where the Vulgate rightly translates pagaha by grossosuos, its green figs. The term kais, primarily meaning the harvest of the fruits and summer fruits in Jeremiah, Isaiah, is sometimes used for the fig itself, probably for the late fig in Samuel and Amos. The fig was one of the principal fruits of Palestine even before the entrance of the Hebrews into the Promised Land. Figs were sometimes dried and pressed into cakes called dabalah on account of their round shape. These were used as food in 1 Samuel and as a remedy for boils in 2 Kings, Isaiah. Fig leaves are mentioned as the material of the aprons of Adam and Eve, and these leaves being larger than those of any other Palestinian tree. The fig tree was associated with the vine as an emblem of peace and prosperity in Micah and Isaiah. And on the other hand, the failure of the fig crop and the destruction of the fig tree were regarded as a misfortune and as a punishment from Yahuwah. In Jotham's parable, Judges, the fig is distinguished for its sweetness and good fruit.
Okay, so that's a description there. A bit of, you know,
So does that mean we're the ripe generation? Right, the fig tree generation? You're muted, Darla.
I remember thinking, I've got my mic muted. Muted it for my ducks. Yeah, can we go back and look at Matthew 24, y'all? Funny. So learn this parable from the fig tree. When its branches already become tender and puts forth leaves, you know that the summer is near. So he's telling us it is a summer fruit. That article was saying perhaps these were the what is the fig tree there? Do we know what that word is there? I don't have my English Hebrew Holy Scriptures. I've just got my large print. Somebody with the Holy Scriptures, can you pick up that word? Or we can look at the Aramaic as well.
yeah, no. See, Sykes.
That might give us a Hebrew word, which would be great.
I think it does.
I think I've heard of people with that last name, Sykes,
Yeah.
right? That means their name is
Suke.
fig tree.
Suke.
Suke.
Mm.
Oh, that said something about wild. Interesting.
Sukon. Yeah. Okay, so where do we want to go to the interlinear?
Just wondering if this will get us back to a Hebrew word. Because we've got two different fig harvest. We've got one that I think it said it was planted in Passover. One of the pages we were looking at said it was planted in the spring, but it's the harvest is a summer fruit. But then we have the fruit of the second, which is like a fall fruit.
The fall, yeah. And it says it'll even stay there till winter
Yeah.
when
sure
all the
did.
trees or leaves have fallen off.
I wanted to say hello to Patient 15 over in the YouTube live chat. Sorry, I haven't been looking much.
Hello, brother. Okay.
Comments there about Jonah, Tree of Life, Psalms 119.
So we're going to Matthew 24, Bonnie.
Verse 32.
I hope y'all appreciate Bonnie. She does so much for us.
I
She's
try.
very, very competent and able.
Indeed.
I try. One can only try. So from the fig tree, so we've got Tay to R. So Tau, Alet.
There's an interesting spelling, isn't it? Completion, strength. Oh, that's pretty interesting. That's letter by letter what that word means.
This is a root word, and fig tree, the fig tree, a fig tree.
Yeah.
So
So that's a different word altogether. So now we're looking at the Aramaic,
yeah.
which gives us ta, aleph. Completion of the covenant strength. That's kind of cool.
So that's what we're looking at there.
What do you think about that one, Teza? Letter by letter, the meaning of that word for the tree, completion of the covenant strength.
How did you get that? Was that something you?
Well, ta means completion. It also means a covenant.
Yeah.
And then the olive.
You got Alatar backwards there as
Yeah,
well.
we usually say strength of the covenant, but covenant strength, that's a whole other awesome concept right there. Covenant strength.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Avraham Gileadi over at IsaiahExplained.com, who has a translation and a commentary for every chapter in Isaiah, he talks about that's a covenant word. That's a covenant term, or that's a covenant curse. Like you don't keep the covenant, you get the curse. You keep the covenant, you get the barakot, the blessings. Yeah. Completion of the covenant strength. I love that.
I wonder why in Luke 21, which is like a parallel to Matthew 24, it says, "Behold the fig tree and all the trees." So what do trees mean biblically, scripturally?
What verse did you say it was in? Chapter and verse?
They represent people, don't they?
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
Or the nations.
Right.
Luke 21:29.
Can we go over there, Bonnie, please?
Yep, trying.
No worries. Yeah, I didn't think about you already being on it.
Luke 21, 29.
And when you think, like after watching one of those programs we spoke about earlier, when I saw you under the fig tree, when Yeshua said that to one of his disciples.
You've got a lamed prefix there now. So 22595 we had before. 593.
That was Tomas, I think.
Yeah. The error, the new number basically just means, you know, it's got the lamed there.
Yeah. Wow. So the verse then says, if I can try to fit it all together here, and he said to them a parable. Oh boy, we did a video. I haven't gotten it edited yet, but we did a video on what a parable is. That was pretty awesome. Look for that one. Behold the fig tree and all of the trees, that when they bud, so now we're talking about them budding, including the fig tree, at once, when they bud at once, for them understand you that approaches it summer. Thus also you, whenever you see these things that occur, know that near is the reign of Elohim. Aloha. Aramaic is aloha. Very awesome.
So is that
So-
like if you were to just read it and say, okay, if it's the summertime or the fall, when
Yes.
he's coming in at that time. Know that it is near.
It said when they bud it once,
So that
You know-
would be around Passover.
So here's the
Okay, there we go.
ISR. Here's the ISR translation, just if you want for ease of
Thank you.
reading.
yeah,
For
yeah,
ease of
it
reading
is
and
easier.
understanding.
It's easier reading for sure.
Yeah.
Look at the fig tree and all the trees when they have already budded, observing it, you shall know for yourselves that summer is now near, which we do. We know when we see fruit coming out, oh, the lemon tree's there, oh, the orange tree's there, oh, the avocado tree's there. So you know summer's near. So you also, when you see these take place, know that the reign of Elohim is near. Truly I say to you, this generation shall by no means pass away till all shall have taken place. The heaven and the earth shall pass away, but my word shall by no means pass away. So then if we really need to go and see what are the these he's talking about, which would be before this verse. Right, Bonnie, before 29. So he's going to tell us what's going to take place.
Of these things here as well.
It might be easier to read it in the ISR at this point and just scroll up on the chapter. So we need to talk about what are these he's talking about, and when these
It'd be the
matters.
signs of the end, isn't it?
Yeah,
Coming of the Son of Man and the destruction of Jerusalem was talking about there too. As well as what? War and persecution, destruction of the temple, and the widow's offering. Lots of things.
okay, so we can go down to probably verse 10. Or even 9. Let's see what 9 says. So these are the things he's telling us to look for. But when you hear fightings and unrest, do not be alarmed, for these have to take place first, but the end is not immediately. Then he said to them, nation shall rise against nation and reign against, and we could probably say that's probably Goy.
Yeah.
It could be a Gentile nation against Gentile nation, and reign against reign.
Yeah, it's not.
So
Yeah.
the Greek word for nation is ethnos, which could also mean ethnic group.
Mm.
And so that might not be nations, but ethnicities. And
Flick
not
over
sure
to I can flick over to the Aramaic quickly if you want. We
we can do that.
So 2110.
Yeah.
2110. Yeah.
A nation.
Nation there is Amar.
Yeah.
Ah,
And so that definitely could be what could be known as folk stems.
people.
Their mother
You've got
is,
Gentiles, you've got
yeah.
Gentiles there. Yeah. I see I and them, and I think me, my people.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely a people, but it can also have the people come from a people comes from an original mother of that people.
Yeah, it does have Gentiles there.
Yeah.
It's the
So
nation.
would that be Israel's brothers, the ones that didn't receive the inheritance, those that surround the land?
Could be. It could be folk stems, different ethnicities that are that rise against each other. And even in our own continents, for instance, Bonnie and Tez are in Australia. Rachel and I are I'm on an island in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, but Rachel and Leah and Sherry, they're all on like a continent, North American continent.
And Trisha's
one is yeah, Trisha's sleeping. Trisha's there too, but She's sleeping, so she doesn't hear me say, miss her on the, she's getting her sleep, and I've had about 3 hours sleep, so.
She's been strengthened.
Absolutely. Absolutely. She's with us in Ruach, and I know she's listening to us anyway. So yeah, let's just go to Klein's on that. Ayin Mem Aleph, and let's see what Klein's has to say. Klein's is our etymological dictionary of the Hebrew language. Here's my version. It doesn't have a great bind on this book, but we'll look up Ayin. It's well loved, well used. Ayin Mem Aleph. I'll just read through it real quick. Ayin Mem Aleph. The post-biblical
No,
Hebrew.
what to say.
Pardon?
Sorry, I'm just talking to myself.
Ayin Mem Aleph, it says post-biblical Hebrew. Of course, we're looking at the Aramaic. It says C Ayin Mem for the Aramaic, but it says people. So if I look at Ayin Mem, it says people. It says all these words probably meant originally those united or those related. So this would be like an ethnicity. Kinsman, relative, so they're related. Related to Arabic, they have two M's there. Father's brother, paternal uncle. Amma, Syriac, Ayin Mem Ta Aleph, father's sister, paternal aunt. Ayin Mem is ancestor, father's brother is the Arabic. All these words literally mean related. So they are related. Again, it's also is a preposition together with. So you get that concept of related, even though it's a preposition. It's together with, close to, beside, they're related, as long as, while. So those are really cool meanings for Ayin Mem. All right.
Yeah, I was just looking at the letters, the meanings of them.
Yeah.
The eye to see, know and experience, the water, the mass, the chaos and liquid.
I heard Eric Bissell on a video my kids and I were watching for Hanukkah this week. We were watching Eric
That was
Bissell.
Tobe. That was so
Yeah,
Tobe.
right. We were talking about so Ted's great because Tez is going to have heard it. He was talking about the 2,730 year curse. It's a two-parter, but it's only like an hour and 15 minutes total. It's really awesome. But he gave a meaning of the mem that I had not really heard before on the mem. And he said something like can you remember it, Teza? The intangible to tangible.
Yes.
It is a place of birth. It's a place of the womb where what was intangible becomes tangible. What was a seed and an egg, so to speak, becomes a baby, becomes a birth. It's really exciting to think about this mem letter. I've never thought about the mem before this way. So those of us that are studying Hebrew, this should be super exciting. Even the letter mem has two mems in it because each of the Hebrew letters are spelled by 2 or 3 letters in here. You can look each letter up and how it's spelled, and the mem is spelled mem. So it's intangible to tangible. Super exciting. Okay, Bonnie, we can get back on track. If you're there, she might have to step away.
No, I'm here. I'm just trying to write down what we were looking at.
Yeah.
Looking at
Bonnie's actually also taking notes, y'all.
in Luke 21:10, and that was for nations for Goyim.
I'm hoping this is interesting to everybody because this is our Mashiach said we need to be looking for these signs. So that's where I think we left off, Bonnie. We were reviewing those verses before 21, verse 10.
See what was
That was in Luke.
Yeah.
That was Luke 21.
Yeah, Luke 21. If I misspoke, that's what I meant to say, Luke 21. If we could go back and look there, because we were looking to see what we're supposed to be
Signs.
looking for.
Yeah.
He says, when you see all these things happening, it's like seeing all the fruit of all the summer trees manifesting and ripening, and you know that summer's near. So we need to know that it's near when we see all of them happening together. So Bonnie, if you're not sharing your screen.
I'm not sharing them. Uh,
Come on, Bonnie, share. Come on.
Don't be stingy,
Thank
Bonnie.
you.
so it says in Luke 21:7, it says, and the Talmud say, teacher, but when shall this be? And what is the sign when this is about to take place? You know, when the destruction of the temple will happen. And he said,
See that you are not led astray. He mentions this twice in Matthew. I don't know about in Luke, but twice he mentions this. Do not be deceived. Do not let anybody deceive you. Don't follow any man, but study this out for yourself. So he
And
says, for many shall come in my name, saying I am, and the time is near. Then do not go after them. But when you hear of fightings and unrest, do not be alarmed, for these have to take place first, but the end is not immediately. Then he
is that the wars and rumors of wars thing?
yeah.
Yes.
Do not be alarmed. I mean, for goodness sake, how much of this is going on in the world?
Well, and I don't know, Bonnie, this might be a great place for you to bring up, we already sort of
yes.
reviewed this as to what we would and would not say, but bring up the situation in Australia so people can go and look it up and be aware that this is one of those fightings and unrest that we are not to be alarmed about, because it has to take place.
Yeah, we had this shooting in Queensland, in the outback in Queensland, a police shooting, or somebody shot 2 police officers, and it's just pray for the area. Let me go and find. I shut down Discord. Silly me. So let's go find it. Weambilla. So if you want to Google it, it's all over the news here in Australia at the moment. It reminds me of what was the thing that happened in America?
Waco.
George Floyd, you mentioned.
It reminded me of the George Floyd thing. There's a lot going on that they're not telling us. It's all over the news here, but if you want to Google it, it is WIE. I might put it in the chat over in live chat. WIE AMBILLA.
WIEAMBILLA. Right?
And
Standard Drive.
pray for Australia. Weambilla. Double L. Yeah,
So
Weambilla.
while Bonnie's finishing that, I'll just draw your attention back to verse 8. See that you are not led astray. We really need to bring every thought captive to the word of Yahuwah. There is an agenda, and he has prophesied it. We know what he has said that we need to pay attention to. We need to regard the word of Yahuwah, bind ourselves to the word of Yahuwah, rely on that as our source of all truth.
No. Well, thank you for those, please pray for that situation. It's differing reports, but the mainstream media is not giving us a Tove picture of that from many sources that I'm hearing.
We need to seek the Father for discernment on all situations, because the news sources are not the end all to the path to truth from the Father. I'm not even sure they are anybody that should even be listened to, but it is what it is. And was it one of the studies that I was doing yesterday was talking about, I will post this study in the description. It was about Hanukkah versus, was it Hanukkah versus, it couldn't have been Hanukkah versus Maccabees.
It's the desolation, I think. Abomination of desolation.
Hanukkah versus the abomination of desolation.
I think so. Current events, maybe.
Anyway, they were talking about a 10% remnant in the scriptures. So that's what we ought to be expecting, a 10% remnant. That means something's going to happen to the 90%. And I'm assuming that if they're not listening to the Messiah, they're going to be led astray. That's what I'm thinking. If they're not going to listen to the Messiah and study out his word, we are studying Matthew 28, but this is a Luke 21 version of Matthew 28. It's there as well. If we're not going to listen to the Messiah, we are going to be led astray, because he's going to tell us twice in Matthew 24, see that you are not led astray. See that you are not deceived. So you can only imagine that those who aren't listening to the word and aren't going to do the word, they are going to be deceived. So then we go on to verse 10. Then he said to them, nation shall rise against nation and reign against reign, kingdom against kingdom, country against country, that sort of thing. And there shall be great earthquakes in various places and scarcities of food and deadly diseases. Would you say like we're in the throes of this, or would you say like maybe we're at the beginning of this? And there shall be horrors and great signs from heaven. I don't think we're there yet. Maybe Nibiru is a great sign from heaven. That we need to actually see it, like on a grand scale. Like everybody can't be denied it's there. That would be a sign, a great sign from heaven, when the great masses can see it.
Where are we up to?
Verse 11, Bonnie. You guys got any thoughts about verse 11? Are we there yet? Are we not quite there? We're hearing about scarcities of food.
We're definitely hearing about all of it.
I think
Horrors and great signs in heaven. Yeah, that's the only thing missing.
I think I heard TRUMP say that you enjoy your Thanksgiving meal, but you're not going to be able to afford the turkey or something like that. We got a turkey in November that was free, so that didn't come true. Our grocery store gives them away as like rewards. So you get so many rewards in November, you can get a free turkey. So it wasn't impossible to get one. That his words did not come true on that one. We've heard about the scarcities of food. We've heard abominable things about the scarcities of food. So far, a lot of maybe it's time. It's a word to prepare, but we haven't had horrible scarcities of food. We've seen the prices go up on food. That we can all, I think, relate to. The prices of food have been horrible. They put less in the bags and then charge more for the bags.
Are we ready to go back to Matthew 24 or what are we?
Well, it says in verse 12 here, but before all this, before the great earthquakes in various places and scarcities of food and deadly disease, before all this, they shall lay their hands on you and persecute you, delivering you up to the congregations and prisons, being brought before sovereigns and rulers for my name's sake. That hasn't happened yet.
That'd make Micaiah happy, wouldn't it?
That would make who happy? Micaiah. Micaiah is my son with autism, and he this week he was very afraid of the dry lightning, which I think is beautiful and stunning, like a melody in the clouds of light and just a symphony. But he was scared by it. He was scared by the lightning, and he's waiting for us to get a home built. And we've been on our property for 3.5 years now, and we're still living in military tents, much to his dismay. And we'll get there someday, but we're not there yet. And so one of his suggestions is, for besides leaving to go to California where my family lives and saying, see you never again. Bye. And another choice is go live in the jail for a long time. He really wants a roof over his head. And it's really messing with his security right now. So he's given me another 6 months to, I've begged for another 6 months extension on my always expiring December deadline date. So I don't know, but I believe Yahuwah is gonna to bring about manifest. There's that mem word, manifest. I believe he's going to manifest a house for us in this next year. Maybe not in 6 months, but I think we'll see some progress. Okay, so yeah, before all this, they shall lay their hands on you and persecute you, delivering you up to the congregations and prisons, being brought before sovereigns and rulers for my name's sake. Well, that hasn't happened yet, but Yahushua said it's going to happen.
What is delivering you up to the congregation? That's like what, like the church people are going to go off their nut about certain things and people.
We've heard about this. We've heard about the 501c3s that this ties the hands of the pastors to serve the government and not be free to speak on what they believe needs to be spoken about. We can't even speak on what we believe needs to be spoken about here. So therefore, rumble. We've heard about pastors who've been trained by the government to lead their congregation. At the end, those men that are deceiving you, those men that you're listening to, those men that you pay a tithe to, that those men have been trained by the government to deliver you in the end. So you'll be brought up to congregations, councils.
Do you think that's when mother and children will put in their parents and brothers and sisters and whatnot, that those that keep the word of Yahuwah?
Look at this, the synagogues, the assemblies and the councils. There's a lot of talk here about the power of the local councils and what they're setting themselves up to be able to do to us.
That is happening today.
People's Council is being formed here in Australia to get into our local councils and to put them to task. But look, the synagogues,
Yeah.
the churches, the assemblies, and the local councils. That's what that means there, councils. So you got Lamed Kaf Noon Wa Shin Tau Aleph. That's a word there.
So local councils, people that can control you or know you or get into your business at a local level, and they answer to higher up powers.
Yeah.
So ultimately it leads up to the one controlling the world systems at the top.
I remember probably about 7, 8 years ago, as I was learning and more of this information was unfolding, and I was walking a very spiritual path at the time. And really connected, like just really, really connected to my Yahushua and Yahuwah. And I didn't know them by that name at the time, but I remember waking up and I was just sobbing, like tears were like literally rolling down the sides of my face. And I didn't feel any sorrow. I didn't have anything on my heart that I was crying about. But Yahushua was telling me that it was his tears, and that he would reveal to me why. And I didn't understand, but I know that at the time, Popey Pants had been in first the USA and then Canada. And I just knew in my spirit that there was some evil, like the scripture about Yahuwah being able to see what's being done in the secret rooms and the secret handshakes and all that sort of thing. And while he was visiting in both countries, he was gathering together all of the different church organizations, like leaders from all of the different church organizations. And then he was also meeting with, certain bishops and, Catholic Church representatives. And it was like anybody that wasn't getting on board was kicked out. And then my girlfriend and I were watching in horror as we were seeing that, small little church congregation. Oh, I'm skipping ahead. So it was about a week later that I found out that there was about 30,000 letters sent out to, like, say, the apostolic congregation of the USA, or, the Pentecostal Assembly and those different organizations. About 30 letters were sent out saying that you will keep your congregants in line with whatever the government tells you. And and then it all of a sudden hit me. It was like Yahushua said, that was what my tears are for, with how many refused to take a stand for me. And then my girlfriend and I watched in horror for the next while. You would start seeing, I guess, small little church congregations that refused to get in line with it. And there was like, husband and wife preacher died in a car accident, and all these strange deaths started happening. And we were realizing that was, it was almost like that was setting it up back then for what's coming. And it was, it was like either you're on board or you get out.
Yeah.
So that means that basically any church that is connected, doesn't matter what affiliation they are, somewhere at the top, an agreement has been made with the Vatican to
Right.
be on board with whatever decree comes down from the government, or from the Vatican, I guess would be. So, and I felt his heart. I just felt, like just, and it was just kind of like, that's why, because there's so few that have taken a stand for me.
Yeah.
It was profound.
Hey,
So, and,
Bonnie.
and if we've watched it, over the years since then, we can see that, everything sort of changed, and I don't know, almost became like a joke. I can't really say that per se, but I just, it's almost like the church has become sort of something to not really take seriously, or they don't take his word seriously, So,
Yeah, not
that's
reading the
my thought.
words. My people perish for lack of knowledge. That's very significant to the kinds of things that we have heard over the last 12 or so years. Hey, Bonnie, can we please go back to that page we were at last when you were sharing screen? Thank you. Let's see if we can get through this. The things that we're supposed to be looking for, all the fruit at the same time. So where were we here? Yeah. So because of my name, we're not at that point. Who is?
It's like the Maccabees thing you were talking about. I'm going to be persecuted and told to do things against.
Yeah.
And we're going to have to make a stand because of his name.
Stand on his name. I mean, that's significant. If you're not making a stand on his name right now, this is going to be something that is going to be required. You're going to make a stand on his name. Might as well make it now. He's got such amazing promises for standing on his name, calling on his name. in his word. You can do a study through a Strong's Concordance about name. Just look up name, and where he talks about my name above all. But this is what we will be suffering persecution because of his name, he says.
Yeah. Shema is the same
But-
as Hebrew. You've got Shema.
But Darla, don't you think that's happening now? Like, okay, they're not being killed and afflicted because of his namesake, but there is a division of sacred namers, those that use the real name, those that use the pretend name, those that sort of thing is happening
Yeah.
on a smaller
As a-
scale.
Teza, you're so correct, because even within quote unquote messianic congregations, it's you're told that's not it. It can't be that, it can't be that name. It has to be this name. And
Yeah,
so the persecution begins with those religious that have a spirit of religiosity rather than his ruach. Because some people may pronounce it Yehovah or Yahuwah or Yah, but the spirit of love and is not going to make it, you're wrong, I'm right. It's not going to make it contentious or condescending or arrogant. There's not going to be that kind of a spirit in it. But
yeah.
I've seen that a lot.
Well, that goes into many will wax cold, when many will hate each other, right?
Yeah.
That word hate or will not love each other is agape, and that's love for one another. And what did
Yes.
Yahushua say? Love me,
Yeah.
love your neighbor.
They'll
What
know
are the
that
two
you are
greatest
mine
commandments?
because of your love.
Yes.
But if there's no love, you're not his. And one of the things is we know what it's not. We definitely know what it is not. And so
Yes.
to stand your ground and to be defiant in continuing in what is provable to be not, and then, to ridicule and persecute those that may choose to say something different than, that's closer to the Hebrew, whether you want to pronounce your vowels a certain way or whatever. I mean, everybody has an accent, and, even I have a friend she's a Sabra, she's native Israeli. She was our Hebrew teacher when my kids did their bar mitzvahs, and she taught them. She was born and raised in Israel. Her father was an Orthodox rabbi, and she came to faith in Yeshua. And she had no problem with me saying Yahuwah. Absolutely none.
That's wonderful.
I seen a Facebook post the other day, 4 days ago, and it actually said, Brother Judah does not use the name, and Christians don't know the name, but his set apart people do.
Yeah.
And I just thought, wow, that really hits home to what we're talking about. Because of the name, the persecution that's going on. Like I've tried to share the name, and it's just like, what are you talking about? You Jewish, and it's just like, how can I be Jewish? Jewish don't use the name.
Yeah.
And Christians don't want to know the name. That's just my thoughts anyway. And I don't mean to offend anyone. This is just what it's been brought to my attention.
Well, yeah, and we need to, it's a great time to bring up the fact that the name Jesus, there wasn't even a J sound in the English language before. Like the early 1600s. So it can't be Jesus. That's not the name that our Messiah was given over 2,000 years ago. He had a Hebrew name, a Jewish name, from the tribe of Judah. Our Messiah is Jewish. He's from the tribe of Judah, a Hebrew tribe, one tribe out of 12, not one tribe, not all 12 tribes aren't Judah. Judah's just one brother of 12 brothers.
I was watching, yeah, I was watching a foreign clip the other day. It was in Norwegian, and the person's name was Kaya, and it was Kaja. And then because there were subtitles, I go, every time they had a J, it was pronounced as a Y. So I thought that was very interesting.
Yeah.
That even in the Norwegian language, even though they write it today with the letter J, it's still pronounced yeah.
And Trisha, you speak Spanish, so is that not the same with Spanish?
No,
Okay.
it's not. Like, for example, Jesus is Jesus. I'm trying to think of another word.
Well, we had a nanny that was like a sister to me. Loved her so much. Love her still. And she would call Judah Yuda. Yuda.
Yeah, Yuda.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You pronounce a J as a Y.
As
Is
a
that not
Y.
the way it is in Spanish? A J word?
I'm
Y?
trying. You caught me off guard. I'm trying to think of a
No
J
worries.
word.
Lots of J words are pronounced with more of an H sound. It's more of a
Yeah.
ha.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah.
I can't think of any other words, but of course Judah was our Dennis the Menace. He fired her one time. He's about 5 on the autism spectrum, and he said, "You're fired, Elvia." And she was afraid she lost her job. You know, it's like he was such a little Dennis the Menace. Therefore, whatever you wish men to do to you, do also to them. We got over to Matthew 7.
I've got it's in the comments in the live chat, patient 15. It's with the golden rule. Matthew 7:12. Love the laws, 50 of them. Also Ephesians 6:12. So we're talking about this here. Therefore, whatever you wish men to do to you, do also to them. But this is the Torah and the prophets. And Ephesians 6:12. It's because we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against authorities, against world rulers of the darkness of this age, against spiritual wickedness in the heavenlies. So yes, very much
100% agree.
cool. Thank you. Thank you for that.
So I was thinking about Revelation 3 real quick, Bonnie, since we're going other places. I wasn't going to go
Okay,
there.
so I just thought
Well, it's quite
I'm
quick.
so obsessive sometimes. I was trying to think, okay, what's a word with a J? And I
Yeah.
was thinking,
Well, I found this one.
there's a Spanish tongue twister that's Baja la Jaula Jaime, and they're Baja la Jaula Jaime. Those are all J's. Sound
Okay,
like
got it.
a
Sister
het,
Rachel said.
The J is the
So,
het.
Baja
Got
la
it.
Jaula Jaime, and it's not a J sound. It's different.
Not a J.
It's like a
Yeah.
I thought Alejandro right away.
What
Yeah,
verse?
Fuerga.
What verse? Bella?
party
I
to
want to go
party it
into
up.
Philadelphia, the Church of Philadelphia. Because you have guarded verse 10. I'm not sure where I'm going. Because you have guarded my word of endurance. I also
Darla,
shall-
I can see your mouth moving, but I can't hear you.
I can hear you.
You can hear. All right.
I can hear
Did
you.
I just talk over someone?
Turn it up, Trisha. Turn it up. Turn your
Okay.
volume up.
Verse 10, because you have guarded my word of endurance, I also shall guard you from the hour of trial, which shall come upon all the world to try those who dwell on the earth. All right, here we go. Verse 12, he who overcomes, I shall make him a supporting post in the dwelling place of my Elohim. How's that for a promise? And he shall by no means go out, and I shall write on him the name of my Elohim and the name of the city of my Elohim, the renewed Yerushalayim, which comes down out of the heaven from my Elohim, and my renewed name. So there is a tie between us and the name of Yahushua.
Yep, he's going to make everything right.
Wow.
Yeah.
Galatians 3:12.
All right, so we can go back to we were just going through Luke 21 because we were there.
That was my fault. I did the parallel.
No worries. I mean, it is a parallel, so it's Tob.
Oh.
Luke 21. We'll just see what the other things we're just looking for. What are the signs that we're supposed to be looking at here? So verse 8, see that you are not led astray again, for many shall come in my name. So there's that. Some are going to come in his name. And then verse 12.
We did that. We got to the this one, the ethnic groups.
And then verse 12.
And
You're
we
gonna
got
be
to this
brought-
one. We talked about the congregations and the prisons, which was the synagogues and the assemblies. The kings, brought before sovereigns and the rulers for my name's sake. So that's where we're up to.
And it shall turn out to you for a witness. Therefore, resolve in your hearts. So it'll turn out to you for a witness. That's an interesting thing. We're going to be brought before them for his name's sake, and it shall turn out to you for a witness. I think maybe this is referring to the scripture. I think it's in Matthew 10, which says that don't prepare what you're going to say. It's going to be given to you.
That's next. Yeah, that's coming up.
Yeah. Okay. So therefore, resolve in your hearts not to premeditate on what to
No.
answer. Okay. So that's what it's talking about. For I shall give, I didn't see that, y'all. That's just the Ruach HaKodesh throwing that in. For I shall give you a mouth and wisdom with all your adversaries shall not, which all your adversaries shall not be able to refute or resist. How about that? They won't be able to refute or resist. That's pretty awesome promise right there. I shall give you a mouth and wisdom. Hallelujah. And you shall also be betrayed by parents and brothers and relatives and friends, and some of you shall be put to death. And you shall be hated by all because of my name. There's his name again. He said his name 3 times in this chapter. But not a hair of your head shall be lost at all. What is it? Even if they put you to death, not a hair of your head shall be lost. Is that how y'all are seeing that?
No, but anyway, never mind.
What did you say, Teza?
I said, yep,
Yep.
I said that.
Can't
Not
touch
a
it.
I
hair.
agree.
Not a
I
hair.
agree.
It is written.
What about this line here?
How about that one?
Possess your lives by your endurance. And we talked about that staircase of, and without knowledge and self-control, you can't have endurance. Stop at knowledge and don't develop self-control, you miss out on this one.
Great point, Bonnie. What's the name of that video we did? Do you know?
The Toys R Us commercial, I don't want to grow up. What
Toys
video?
R Us.
What video?
The video we did with the stair steps.
Was that 2 weeks ago, I think?
2 weeks ago, yeah.
That's like a lifetime for us.
It's 2 weeks ago.
Yeah. Anyway, it's in our recent history. It was an excellent video. All right. I wasn't planning on going over here, but let's just go on over to Revelation 12:17. So this says, possess your lives by your endurance. Revelation 12:17. Did I freeze?
Matthew 7:24 to 27. We did the live. Around about the 8th of December.
I don't think that was the
No,
video.
that wasn't it. That wasn't it. John 12.
Well,
no,
it's probably,
it was first Peter chapter 2.
yeah, it's probably visible.
Second Peter chapter 1, sorry. Yeah, around about the 8th of December. You'll find that video.
I think that was one Trisha brought to us to study
Yeah.
originally.
We had great fun with that, didn't we?
Yeah.
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 Isn't that
Trisha,
the
do
Bible codes, Yeshua codes?
I don't know. I don't think it was a code. No.
I
Trisha, you
think
were
we,
sharing.
yeah, we re-recorded it because something happened. So we kind of like did it twice. I think we brought it up on a Shabbat and then redid it on a class
How did
day.
it come to us, Trisha? How did it come to us? I think you brought it up and it was a
Oh, I
prayer.
was just like, yeah, I was praying and I was just being like overwhelmed with a lot of stuff. And I felt like, being pushed under. So like, let me come up for air. Please let me breathe. I can't do this. Help. And he just brought to my mind the verse, and I wasn't quite sure exactly where it was, but I like heard or remembered, he reminds you of scripture that you've read. He says, I have already given you everything you need to live a righteous life. And I'm like, oh, wow, exactly. So I Googled that and found out, I believe it's 2 Peter 1. And then we had so much fun because Bonnie was using was it Canva, where she was doing her steps, and we were like putting different colored steps, and just like, to your belief, you add knowledge, to your knowledge, you add self-control, to your self-control. And then I said, oh, well, just leave the self-control out. Yeah, we don't want to do that. That's too hard. And then so we erased that step, and it was like, no, you don't get to the next step if you don't exercise self-control. So the concept of we've been given everything we need in Yeshua, and he's given us his word, and there's nothing impossible for him because he has proven himself trustworthy. So it was just so encouraging for me.
And Trisha, what is that verse that you've also talked about? How can you run with the horses or something like that?
Yeah, if you can't run with the footmen, how are you going to keep up with the horses, with the chariots, with the horses? So I think we're in training right now.
Yeah.
And he wouldn't have wanted us to, I mean, he's constantly calling us warriors. He says, you have trained my fingers for battle. He's constantly telling us, endure, 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 and it's because he wants to work a better work in us, more tov. He wants us to be perfect for our intended purpose, right? And he created us for a reason. So it's hard work. It's really hard work.
Yeah.
And you don't get to the Olympics unless that's what you focus on. And, you don't become the best of the best or a Green Beret unless you're the best of the best, or a Navy SEAL. I mean, it's hard work. And
Oh, sorry, I thought you were done.
yeah, no, that's it. I mean, it's hard.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Nothing Tob comes without blood, sweat, and tears along the way, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Increase.
Driving
And
to the
about what you
Bonnie's
just said, Leah?
highlighting,
Blood,
yeah, Bonnie's
sweat, and
highlighting
tears.
increase. 2 Peter 1:8. For if these are in you and increase, they cause you to neither be inactive nor without fruit. And so, if we want to produce fruit, which we're supposed to produce fruit, I mean, self-control is one of the fruit of the Ruach. So, yeah. And then we talk all the time about love, but you can't get to love if you skip over knowledge, self-control, endurance, reverence, brotherly affection. You can't just jump from
Can't
the
start with
street.
love.
Yeah, you can't jump from the street to the rooftop. You got to climb those stairs.
And Bonnie,
I was
could we
gonna
please
say
go?
can you guys hear me?
Yes, we do.
Oh, okay. I was just gonna say my girlfriend and I were we used to do pretty intense Bible studies together. And we were doing, okay, I'm hearing an
Yes.
echo. Are you guys?
Tezzy, you're echoing. Can you push mute, please? Thank you. Go, Leah.
Okay. Is that okay now?
Yeah,
Okay.
it was
Yeah,
temporary.
so we were in a really deep Bible study, and I would get visions, well, we both would, and then we would share what Yahuwah was showing us as we were, reading through the scriptures and that. And I had a vision of, a whole group of us galloping on horses and, like going into battle. And then if someone would fall off their horse, you would just reach your arm down, lock wrists, and throw them on the back of your horse and just keep going. Like it was just like we were all lockstep together. That was like, I was like, wow, that's amazing.
Yeah. Hey, Bonnie, can we go to Revelation 12, verse 17 real quick? And then we'll get back to our fig trees. If that sounds dope to y'all. So this says, and the dragon was enraged with the woman, and he went to fight with the remnant of her seed, those guarding the commands of Elohim and possessing the witness of Yahushua, Messiah. Okay. Thought that was going to say something about those who overcome. Maybe I've got the wrong verse, but those who overcome. It could be 14:12.
Yeah, that's kind of like the mirror verse to what you just read.
Here we go.
14:12.
Here's the
Yeah.
endurance.
Yeah.
Yeah. Here is the endurance of the Kodesh ones. Here are those guarding the commands of Elohim and the belief of Yahushua. So this is
Yeah.
their endurance. They're guarding the
Yeah.
commands of Elohim and the belief of Yahushua. So we're told to
And
endure.
sorry, go ahead.
Oh, that's it.
And as you were reading that, the verse came to my mind. I think it's in Matthew, and it talks about whoever wants to save their life will lose it, but whoever loses his life for my sake will find it. And it's like, if we're going to compromise and we're going to not be set apart, we're going to go with the flow. We're not going to guard his commandments, and our belief in Yahushua is twisted, then that's wanting to save our lives and we're going to lose it. But
Right.
when you
We
said
can-
not a hair, some of us will be put to death, but not a hair on our head will be lost. That's what I'm thinking, is like, we lose our life for his sake. He saves us.
Right, right here, verse 13, it says, and I heard a voice out of the heaven saying to me, write, Baruch are the dead who die in the master from now on. Yes, says the Ruach, in order that they rest from their labors and their works follow with them. I mean, that's basically what you were saying. We're going to
Eternal life.
Yeah. Staying alive in this life is not the goal.
Yeah.
Just not. It's filled with pain and trauma and stress, and keep going, keep enduring, and we have to bring ourselves to the end. We were looking at another verse. Where were we? Just before Revelation, I think it might have been I think it was in 2 Peter 1. We were there, and it was talking about making our calling sure. making our calling sure, and we won't fail then.
Reminds me of we are not of this world.
Yes.
We may live here, but we are not a part. We live here, but we're not part of it. We're set apart.
You want to go over there, Bonnie, real quick to Peter? It said calling and something else.
Drawing, I might have to shut some things, hang on.
I forget how the wording was, but I could probably find it in my,
Frozen. It's frozen up.
here we go. I'll go to my scriptures here.
Yeah, sit and do that.
Let me find it.
I
2
think it's
Peter
verse
1.
10. It might be verse 10. Is it verse 10 where it says, for this reason, brothers, all the more do your utmost to make firm your calling and choosing.
And
For if
choosing.
you are doing these matters, you shall never stumble at all. For in this way, an entrance into the everlasting reign of our Master and Savior, Yahushua Messiah, shall be richly supplied to you.
Amen.
Hallelujah.
It's just beautiful. It's so comforting. But we have to do our utmost.
Yeah, that is
Do
true.
our utmost to make firm our calling and choosing. I have
Yes.
to be doing these things. I can't just talk about them. I have to do them. And it doesn't matter how hard it is because he's promised to give me the strength.
You know, this brings to mind that scripture that says, many are called, but few are chosen. So that is also talking about the calling and the choosing. Many are called, but few are chosen. So do your utmost to make firm your calling and choosing. For in this way, an entrance into the everlasting reign of our Adon and Savior, Yahushua HaMashiach, shall be richly supplied to you. So beautiful.
What was the address for that one, please, Della?
That was 2 Peter 1, 10 and 11.
When you're
I mean,
saying many are chosen, few are chosen,
yeah.
it reminds me of what I was reading the other day. Second Ezra, a lot in the Sefer, it's fourth Ezra. And in the later chapters of it, it was just saying that how much there's more silver than gold, more coal than it was just going through all the earthly things. So those who are precious to him are few. Just with you saying that about being chosen.
Yeah. Many are called, few are chosen. Do your utmost to make firm your calling and choosing. It's right there in verse 10. If you're called and you're not chosen, I'm assuming it's because you're not doing your utmost to make it firm. But we can do our utmost to make firm our calling and choosing. In fact, we're told to do our utmost to make firm our calling and our choosing. Why? Because we want entrance into the everlasting reign. Verse 11, which shall be richly supplied to you. That's a promise.
You know, and if we keep reading, it says, and so I intend to remind you of these matters again and again. And we could say again and again and again and again, though you know them and have been established in the present truth. But I think it is right, as long as I'm in this tent, to stir you up by a reminder. We all need to be stirred up. We can't just live off of that experience of, like, you know, our initial repentance and understanding and coming to faith and trusting him and calling out to him, and then not be increasing in the things that he asks us to do. Right? It's like he's doing his utmost to see to it that you always have a reminder of these matters before my departure. That was his calling, right? He knows the end is near for him. And he's going, oh, well, maybe I'll take it easy a little bit. I've done, I've run the good race. I've fought the good fight. I'm going to take it easy. I'm getting older, But no, he
It
says,
always,
until
ahead.
my departure, right up until the end, the last thing I want to be doing is making sure my calling, I think that's beautiful.
Yeah, we're not alone. We have each other. We have
It
those
always,
fathers before us.
I was just going to say, it always stood out to me, when I read the 10 Commandments, that he says to the thousands who love me, not millions, not billions, just thousands.
And that would be throughout all of history. I mean, when you think about it, and I'm not saying it's only 1,000, like literally, but the concept of, it's few. Well, what's that verse that says the way to perdition is wide, but the path to
I just
righteousness is narrow?
is
The narrow
narrow.
path.
Yeah, I was just saying that. I had to unmute myself. Yeah, good on you, Trisha.
It's
Yes.
narrow.
And few there be that find it.
Yeah, I had to close down a mic or two because somebody's rustling in the background. So just be aware of that, y'all. If you're rustling, just put your mute your mic.
Yeah.
We all got things we got to move around. We got to get up and walk around and stuff like that. Bonnie, what are you showing us? Something? You going something?
Second message before.
You got us back to Matthew. Great. And so was there something else we were going to share about the fig tree that you've pulled up that we haven't gotten through yet, Bonnie?
There was the other one from Tizar.
Yes, we have a chapter that we looked at that was pretty significant, we thought. We're still looking at your AENT here, or whatever, eSword.
My olive tree.com. We have this one.
What does the parable of the fig tree have to do with Israel? Trisha, you want to read this one?
It's from 2019, so that's not too old.
Sure. I'm awake now. I'm like a new person.
Oh, that's so wonderful. We're thrilled for your nap.
Okay. So it's saying, what does the fig tree have to do, the parable of fig tree have to do with Israel? And this is by My Olive Tree. So in the Bible, the fig tree is a representation of Israel. The olive tree also represents, hold on, I need to minimize or change my thing because it's covering. How do I get rid of that? Oh, there we go. Okay. Represents Israel, but Yeshua specifically speaks of the change in the fig tree in Matthew 24 as a sign of the end times. Why does Yeshua talk about the fig tree in Matthew 24? A fig tree is a regular pattern that it follows for budding and producing a harvest. It reveals a sign that the seasons are changing to all those who are around and pay attention. The branches become tender and shoot forth leaves. This is the sign that summer is near. The fig tree is the last of the trees to bud. Therefore, when it starts to change, we can expect a rapid shift in the atmosphere. Summer is the precursor to the harvest season for autumn. Summer is a time when idols can often impact our worship, and time with Yahuwah, or the master. We frequently get out of routine and our focus drifts elsewhere. As a result, when harvest season approaches, there can be a lack of tov crops. Here's the problem. When we fail to open our eyes to what the fig tree is doing, we can miss out on the patterns Yahuwah wants to reveal to us so that we can see his timeline. Why is this so important to watch the fig tree?
This is
Matthew,
what.
yeah,
This is what.
Matthew 24. This is why. Okay, sorry about that. Matthew 24, the parable of the fig tree. Now learn this parable from the fig tree. When its branch has become tender, has already become tender, and puts forth its leaves, you know that summer is near. So you also, when you see all these things, know that it is near at the doors. Assuredly, I say to you, this generation will by no means pass away till all these things take place. Heaven and earth will pass away, but my words will by no means pass away. The parable of the fig tree in Israel. The Bible often uses the fig tree to describe the abundance of the land in Israel. Yahuwah showed the prophet Yirmiyahu that the tov figs would be brought back to their land, and he would plant them there for. Now, I don't know if he means, yeah. Okay, he would plant them there, period. That's it. They're planted, never to be pulled up again.
Dispersed
Yeah.
Israel.
Yeah. Yahuwah showed me, and there were 2 baskets of figs set before the temple of Yahuwah. One basket had very tov figs, like the figs that are first ripe, and the other basket had very bad figs, which could not be eaten. They were so bad. When Yahuwah said to me, "What do you see, Yirmiyahu?" And I said, "Figs, the tov figs, very tov, and the bad, very bad, which cannot be eaten. They are so bad." Again, the word of Yahuwah came to me saying,
We lost audio, Patricia. Or was it just me?
No, we've lost it.
Okay. Anyone else want to keep reading? I'll read. I haven't read yet. Again, the word of Yahuwah came to me, saying, "Thus says Yahuwah, the Elohim of Israel, like these so will I acknowledge those who are carried away captive from Judah, whom I have sent out of this place for their own tov into the land of the Chaldeans. For I will set my eyes on them for tov, and I will bring them back to this land. I will build them and not pull them down, and I will plant them and not cut them up." So Jeremiah 24, 1, 2 to 6. And I found Israel like grapes in the wilderness. I saw your fathers as the first fruits on the fig tree in its first season. Hosea 19. When you look at these 2 passages through the lens of Matthew 24, you begin to see how Elohim is preparing the land of Yasharel for a physical and spiritual harvest. I just wanted to mention back
Hallelujah.
for the Chaldeans, captivity for the Chaldeans, that's the lost 10 tribes. It's talking about the lost.
Look at the dispersed Israel.
Yeah.
I think it's Judah. It
Judah?
says captive from Judah. Yeah, it says there, captive from Judah.
Carried away captive from Judah. Okay.
Yeah, Jeremiah was dealing with Judah.
Sorry about that, guys. I got disconnected for a second there.
All right, we'll just finish reading this. So we've got.
So here we've got a
So the-
comparison to grapes in the wilderness and first fruits on the fig tree in its first season. The fathers.
So you've got the physical and the spiritual harvest.
Yeah. That's where Bonnie kept reading to right there. Is there more,
Yeah.
Bonnie?
Yep. We've got the parable of the fig tree and world events. Do you want to keep reading, Trisha? Are you going to drop signal again?
Hopefully not.
So I'll keep reading till she comes back. There's something else about the parable of the fig tree that helps us gain insight and knowledge when it comes to world events. The fig tree reveals what is happening in regard to the change in seasons. It naturally responds to Elohim's pattern on his calendar. The same can be said for Israel as the fig tree and how it responds to the prophetic and political seasons. When you see the branches become tender and put forth leaves, it is a picture of preparation, restoration, and abundance. Interesting. If you want to understand the events of the world and Elohim's timeline for restoration, then look at Israel. Just ask, as Yahushua said, you will know it is near at the doors. Okay. So how is Elohim restoring Israel? He is restoring Israel and fulfilling biblical prophecy in many ways. Yasharel's statehood on May 14, 1948. TRUMP's opening of the US Embassy in Jerusalem on 14th of May 2018. The ongoing transformation of the once barren land into the blooming desert, according to Isaiah 35:1. These events beg the question, what is next? Though we do not know the details, we can rest in the fact that Elohim has Yasharel's destiny written in the books of Shamayim. When we understand Elohim's word and see how he is faithful in fulfilling all his promises, it stirs our spirit to get involved. When we understand the importance of Yasharel, seeing her as the fig tree and a sign that summer is near, we have a choice to put roots in the same soil that is creating an abundant crop in her. When we do, we get to take part in Yahuwah's prophetic restoration that leads to the return of the sovereign. Okay. What blinds us from seeing the prophetic significance of the parable of the fig tree? That which can blind us from seeing the tender branch and budding leaves when we become consumed with our own affairs and fail to see Elohim's bigger picture as it relates to the nations. Once we start to look for his signs and seasons, we will see all these things. So what should we do? When we see the leaves of the fig tree, we should prepare, but we should also rejoice in the coming restoration of all things. We prepare by sowing seeds into Israel and by giving our faith tangible roots in the Holy Land. We have nothing to fear. We can look forward in expectation to be Barakoth as we Barak is Yisrael. Let us surrender and follow Elohim's plan of restoration. From Revelation 21, 1, 2, and 5. Now I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven and the first earth had passed away. Also there was no more sea. Then I, John, saw the holy city. We talked about this with my mum last night. The
Kadosh,
hang on.
set about.
Hang on. Yeah. Yep. Sorry, it wasn't. It was there. The Kadosh city, New Jerusalem, coming down out of the heaven, as the Shamayim from Elohim, prepared as a bride adorned for her husband. Then he who sat on the throne said, "Behold, I make all things new." Wow, make it so. And he said to me, "Write, for these words are true and faithful." So, and yes, we don't want to really invest in there. So that was an interesting space to look at.
So it might be a great point to mention that it appears that this article was written without the understanding of the other 11 tribes. But there are 12
Yes,
tribes mentioned in Revelation.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
that's what I saw.
That's why I took that as the physical, where there's a spiritual as well, and there will be a physical coming as well.
Then it says Chaldeans, because that was where the lost 10 tribes went to. That's why I thought that was it. But
Are you talking about Assyria?
yeah, you're right. It was Assyria.
Because that's Babylon, right? Chaldeans were in Babylon.
Right, yeah. Judah went to Babylon and the lost 10 tribes went to Assyria. Right, got it right.
Where is the dispersed nations? They're coming out of Babylon.
Everywhere.
Praise be to you.
Yeah. Yeah, so there we have the grapes, we have the fig tree, and we know there's an olive tree too. All right, was there anything beyond that page, Bonnie, or was that it?
No, I had to shut everything down. It wouldn't work.
Yeah. Was there anything else that we wanted to talk about with the fig tree?
I don't know. I've had to close down YouTube as well, so I don't know if there's any further questions over there.
Yeah, I think Rachel brought up something about the flower not being on the outside of the fig tree, but that it was on the inside, and something about a wasp, right? Do you remember what that was, Rachel?
Yeah, so there's a particular type of wasp to where I believe I read that its only food source is actually the fig tree. So it goes inside of the fruit of the fig to pollinate the flower that's on the inside. And more times than not, it never leaves, it dies inside the flower. So most figs that are ripened and eaten likely have a wasp inside.
Wow. So that DNA is broken down or something and used by the fruit, I guess.
Yeah, I guess they kind of feed each other.
I think that's how vanilla is fertilized by some insect that is not necessarily, for instance, in Hawaii, vanilla grows, but every vanilla plant has to be hand fertilized because the insect isn't here. That's interesting. So then the wasp is fertilizing the fruit develops, but the wasp doesn't get out. That's sort of the red crimson word concept a little bit.
Yeah.
It lives a sacrificial life. How are you
Fascinating.
doing, Bonnie?
Yeah.
Checking in with you. I'm looking at your face and I'm going, check in with Bonnie.
So do you think the message behind the parable is the regathering of Yisrael as a sign is the sign of from all the nations?
It looked to me, I saw his name mentioned in there 3 times in that chapter. And he said, when you see all of these signs, know that he is near.
At the door, yeah.
I think that like they likened the branches, when it's tender, it's coming, right? So that might be like if Israel is a representation with their back in the land, that's like the branches are tender. It's starting to happen. It's not all the signs are there, right? But it's starting to happen.
I had to look at, I thought it was Jeremiah 9.
Thanks, Tricia.
8-15.
There was the chapter on, it was a 9, but I think it was it First Kings?
I've written down JUD. I don't know what I meant by that.
We were talking about
Judges.
Okay.
Judges
9. Yeah, we've got to do that. We've got to cover that. It was important. As we're looking at the fig tree. I thought that was so interesting about Jeremiah with the figs, because in Jeremiah 1 is one of my favorite scriptures where Yahushua says, Jeremiah, what do you see? And he says, I see an almond tree, right? And the word for almond and to watch over his word is the same 3 letters in Hebrew, just a different vowel pronunciation. So the almond, I think, is shakade. And then he's like, you see well that you see an almond tree, for I watch over my word to perform it early. The almond tree is supposed to be like the first budding fruit tree, the nut tree. And so it's interesting to me that besides Yahuwah showing him this almond tree in chapter 1, he's also showing him the fig tree. I think that's so interesting that Yahuwah would show his prophet, his Nabi, these trees, and that's supposed to mean something. That means something. Yahuwah is showing him something besides just the physical tree. It's encoded. It's like a coded message or something in the language. So here we are in Judges 9. Shall we start with 8? Is that where this starts?
Mhm.
So it says, the trees went forth to anoint a sovereign over them. And they said to the olive tree, reign over us. And the olive tree said to them, shall I leave my oil with which they esteem mighty ones and men and go to sway over trees? And the tree said to the fig tree, come, reign over us. And the fig tree said to them, shall I leave my sweetness and my tobe fruit and go to sway over trees? Then the tree said to the vine, come, reign over us. And the vine said to them, shall I leave my new wine, which rejoices mighty ones and men, and go to sway over trees?
And we had, sorry.
Is there more?
We went to pick day.
Okay. Then all the trees said to the bramble, come, reign over us. So that's actually 4 times it happened. And the bramble said to the trees, if in truth you anoint me as sovereign over you, come take shelter in my shade. But if not, let fire come out of the bramble and devour the cedars of Lebanon. Wow.
So we had the fig, we had the grape, we had the bramble, and we had
What was the first thing?
the olive.
Olive tree. That's right.
And
So the
they
olive
all
tree-
said, come reign over us. So 1, 2, 3, 4 times, come reign over us.
But
So
the
when you
olive
think about the almond tree, right? You think that it was Aaron's rod that was a staff that was the almond tree, right? And it budded. And it was placed in the Ark of the Covenant, right? So what's wrong with an almond tree? That's representative of, tove things. And then obviously, let's see, the olive tree, that's tove, right? Because that's one of I think every single one of these are trees that are known, they're symbolic trees in Israel, right? The olive tree is what pours its oil into the lampstands in Zechariah, right? The fig tree, obviously, and the vines, the wine, that's very significant. That's all through scripture. So these are all tove things, but then, and none of them, it's almost like, yeah, I want to have a spirit of religiosity, or I want to have, I want to do, I want to have a righteous ruler over me, right? Well, finally, all the righteous ones are saying, no. and then what happens? Bramble. So it's like,
Yeah.
it's almost like they turn away from everything. They'll go to the lowliest of the low and say, come reign over me. And the bramble said, if you really want me to do it,
right.
yeah, but if not, let fire come out of the bramble and devour the cedars of Lebanon. Even the bramble had enough sense to say, this is not what you should be doing. Yahuwah is
Isn't this
Yahuwah.
Isn't this a picture of Moses in the burning bush, the bramble here? And the bramble as the crown of thorns. There is so much symbology here.
Yeah.
And come give us a sovereign, and the people of Judah when they get Saul and that goes bad.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of
There's a lot of ways to look at that for sure.
Well, and like Tessa mentioned before, the trees represent men, right? So
Yeah.
you want another man ruling over you? You have Yahuwah. Yahuwah has said, I will be your Elohim. Enter into covenant with me. And I will do this for you. And I will do that. I mean, it's like, bracha after bracha. And he's just like nothing but promises. We read in 2 Peter, precious promises. If we would Shema, hear and obey. And then no, we don't want you. We want another man. You know, we want another tree to rule over us. It's like insulting.
Bonnie, if you go up into the top part of that where you've got your menu board and it's got topical.
Yeah, in a
You there,
minute.
sweetheart?
In a minute.
Sorry.
In a minute. I can't move until I just want to just finish talking about this, and then I'll do a screenshot.
Okay, sorry.
And then I can go to the topical. Yeah. Are we sort of, what, is there any more comments about?
Well, I think you were kind of hitting on this, Bonnie. If we look at the bramble as being a picture of a man, or it could be Yahushua. If in truth you anoint me as sovereign over you, come take shelter in my shade. But if not, let fire come out of the bramble and devour the cedars of Lebanon. That is also a picture, I think, of Yahushua, that we have to bind ourselves to him. We have to be in allegiance with him.
100% agree.
Yeah.
I totally agree. And look, it says, take shelter in my shade. And it reminds me of the verse that says, take up, my yoke upon you. My burden is not heavy. My yoke is light. Come rest in my shade. But if not, then guess what's going to happen?
That's why he said to the disciple, to one of the disciples, I seen you under the fig tree. I seen you under the.
It's as if you're sovereign. This is what your sovereign requires from you, whether you choose Yahushua, the sovereign of sovereigns, or you choose some man to rule over you. This is what will be required. There is an allegiance that's required, and they provide some form of protection for you. If it's a man, he's gonna make the promises, whether they're full promises, worthy promises, or they're empty and deceiving promises. But they're going to make those promises. So you choose whether you want the sovereign of sovereigns, or you want some man and some man system, some Roman system to rule over you. But it will devour you if you do not live up to your covenant, your allegiance, your relationship.
Yeah. And who was it that asked if it was, this is the bramble is the burning bush?
Hey,
That Moshe saw. Yeah, I don't know if that word bramble is the same, but the burning, I can't pronounce it properly. I'm not quite sure, but it's cedar tree or
Sycamore. Sycamore.
Well, yeah, it says that that it's also called the Ziziphus spina Christi, or Christ's thorn. So that would be significant. It'd be interesting to look into that.
Yeah. Which word is it? Is it bramble?
No, the one I just looked up, what was the bush that was burning that Moshe saw, the burning bush.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Whether or not it is a picture of Yahuwah or Yahushua here, we can, as believers, we can see the concept there, that if we anoint the sovereign of sovereigns, the Mashiach over us, that he invites us to take shelter in his shade or take his yoke upon us, because it's not burdensome. But that if we set ourselves against him and we resist him and we rebel against him, we can expect that if we do not produce the fruit that he requires to be produced in us through the Ruach HaKodesh in us, that will be cut down, cut off, thrown into the fire. That's what his word says.
Yeah.
So that is a relationship between the servant and the sovereign. To serve or to be done away with.
Look that up. Never mind. Oh dear. Okay. Oop. Um,
Fair enough.
Tired. I lost it. No, never mind.
No matter where we are to number our days because our time is short. Right?
Right.
So I think it's definitely we can hear and obey every word that he has spoken, no matter where we are in the timeline. But
You know,
hey,
there-
if that Bible has got the calculations right, which I'm all for it. If we've got just
Yeah.
2 more years to finish out the 6,000 and the 7,000, and that's his millennium. I'm up for that. I'm ready.
3 p.m. Micaiah. Yeah.
And when you think about it, 2 years is nothing.
Oh, nothing at all.
Yeah.
Okay, so just commentary quickly. So it's just 9, we get 8 to 15. Over us. Trees with forth. The trees went forth, as in this chapter, we have the first Israelite king, Solomon, and the first massacre of brethren. So here we have the first fable. Okay, so we're talking about fables here rather than parables. So fables are extremely popular in the East, where they are often current under the name of the slave philosopher. Talking about parables here, though, epilogues and parables in Scripture. In the Old Testament, the ewe lamb. Oh yeah, the one that got stolen, Nathan and David. Psalms 80, Isaiah 51, 1-6. Now will I sing my well-beloved, the song of my beloved, touching his vineyard. My well-beloved is a vineyard and a very fruitful hill. There's only one upper
Bonnie?
grade. Yeah. Hello.
If you go up to the top, as I'd said to you about going to topical,
Oh, topical, sorry.
go to topical.
Yeah. Don't make more sense. Yeah.
No. Can you go backwards? Sorry. Go back. Instead of in that drop down bar, go to it on, yes, go to it there, and it'll bring up about that passage. Okay. All of these things here are what's spoken about in that are parallels. Like you've got the parables there, you've got the trees down further, you've got the olive tree, the rain themselves, the trees, the tree, all of that. And if you go to any of those, it'll talk about just one.
Topic. So do we want to look at that or?
Yeah, maybe just look at the trees. I think that would cover them all.
Trees?
Yes.
Yeah.
I just love these tools.
It's really awesome.
They are fantastic.
Trees were frequently used as types of kings or men of wealth and power. So Psalm 37, 35, Isaiah 2:13, Daniel 40:10-26, Zechariah 11:1 and 2. The tree of knowledge of good and evil, or the forbidden fruit, by eating of which Adam fatally increased his knowledge of toad by its loss, of sin and woe by actual experience. Wow.
Shalom, Rachel.
Oh, you going,
Yeah,
Rosie?
shalom, Rachel.
Lovely to have you again.
Thanks for being with us, sister. That's pretty interesting. Adam fatally increased his knowledge of tow by its loss. That's how he increased his knowledge of tow by its loss. That's deep.
Yeah,
Of sin and woe by actual experience.
yeah. tree of high may have been both an assurance and a means of imparting life. High, a seal of eternal holiness, kadeshness, and bliss if man had not sinned. Compare Revelation 22:2. Okay, what does Revelation 22:2 say?
If you right click, it should take you to it.
Okay, ladies, so what do you think? Am I just imagining this, or is there a verse that actually says that they were banned from the garden lest they eat of the tree of life?
Yeah,
Okay, so the tree of life shows up in Revelation because Yahuwah is wanting people to continue, because Torah is being lived, right? Torah will go forth from Zion. So it's being that's something I'm gonna have to think about. Why would he ban them? I always was told that it was because lest they eat of the tree of life and live in their fallen state,
exactly.
right? So, but in the is the tree of life, that's in the new heaven and earth, or is there a tree of life in the during the millennium?
Well, I'm going
I'm
to
gonna
read
have to look at that.
Revelation 22:2. Are you ready?
Yes.
Yeah,
Um,
well, that's the new heaven and earth.
in the middle of its street, and on either side of the river, was the tree of pine, which bore 12 fruits, each tree yielding its fruit every month, and the leaves of the tree were for the healing of the nations. That's what that one is.
Yeah, but is that in during the millennium, or is that in the new heaven? Well, I would think that's, yeah. You can show me the river of water
After-
of life.
The New Jerusalem's been dropped down at that point.
Yeah,
I thought it was
it says
interesting.
no longer will there be any curse. Verse 3, no longer will there be any curse. That, yeah. So this is, then why would
Genesis 2:9.
the leaves be for the healing of nations? Huh,
Yeah, we spoke
that's-
about we spoke about this a little while ago. Why would we need healing when we get there? There's meant to be no more curse, no more punishment, no more death. So
Okay.
why do we need leaves for healing?
okay, so I'm thinking it says the nations. When it says the nations, that's not Israel. So I'm thinking that these might be, because if you do a study, there's a lot of different categories of people that enter into the millennium. Those that survive all the stuff, they haven't taken the mark. I mean, so, but that doesn't mean that they have been transformed, that their bodies, their incorruptible bodies, their corruptible bodies have been made incorruptible. So many are called, but few are chosen. I think there's definitely, you'll be, rewarded according to what you've done in the flesh. So this might be people that they were called and they answered, but they may not, they're living, they have made their choice. They want to live by Torah. I'm just talking out loud, because I know that. So had Adam and Eve not, Adon and Chava not eaten of the, not sinned and not rebelled, it doesn't say they couldn't eat of the tree of life. So that would have been for their continual, I don't know. That's a very good question. I have to think about that one.
Right. They
But I
chose
do-
the tree.
I do know that there's more people in the kingdom than just the bride. So maybe that, and the nations aren't Israel. They're the nations.
Bonnie, can we go up to the where you just were before you came down, I wanted to say something about that very first sentence. Or I wanted to look at it. Trees were frequently used as types of kings or men of wealth and power. We know a lot of men of wealth and power today, like not know them personally, but we know of them because obviously we have the internet. We know who has wealth and power, right? They'll tell you who the billionaires are, who the men
Yeah.
are who can, buy such as Twitter or Google or Amazon or things like that.
The
They're-
movers and the shakers.
yeah, the movers and the shakers, exactly. So these are the trees. This is a different understanding than what we had when we came in here, that the trees are the people. They're the masses, they might be grass. Men of wealth and power, the trees. So Psalm 30, I think we should look at these scriptures here real quick.
Oh, so that would make a lot of sense, is they're not necessarily, they're the ones that, yeah, they have the power. They want,
Asking
Okay.
the men of power to rule over us. Exactly.
yes. And they may want an appearance of righteousness, but they really they don't get, if the bramble is representative of the thorny crown of Yeshua, right?
Yeah.
He's the last one that they
Yeah.
go to.
Remember
That's-
how we got here? We were talking about reign over us.
Yeah. Reign
This is
over
where-
us.
This is where we come from to get here.
Yeah. The men of wealth and power are the trees.
Yeah.
And they're saying to a specific tree, reign over us. They're saying to the olive tree, reign over us. And then, is it the grapevine? The grapevine?
Yeah, the vine
Yeah.
was another one, yeah. Olive, the grape, the fig, and the bramble.
This is definitely a picture of a leader here.
Yeah, Nebuchadnezzar.
Yeah.
He was chopped down, right?
Yes.
Who do the great men ask to rule over them? Who do the great men want to rule over them? Who do the wealthy, those in power, who do they want to rule over them? It's interesting questions.
So
Yeah.
that one went to verse 20.
In Yahushua's temptation during his fasting time, the devil propositioned him.
I'll
and
give
said,
you all these kingdoms if you'll
Yeah.
just worship me. They were
So
already
I had-
his, It's like,
I had read somewhere that the date tree represented Saudi Arabia, cedar tree was Lebanon, the palm tree was Jordan, the olive tree was Syria, and the fig tree was Israel. And it gave their dates with it
wow.
when they all come back in. And it's just I'm trying to do a study on trees at the moment because of this.
yeah. And those are all surrounding countries,
And
all
that's
right
why
there
I
in
ended
that
up
area.
saying, that's why I tried to say before, when you see these things coming, because it actually says further down in Matthew, when you see them surround Judah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
flee. And isn't it a seed war
A seed war.
physically? Seed war, as in you've got the elder brothers.
Another
Who-
agricultural idiom.
Yeah.
Sorry.
You've got Ishmael and you've got Esau. You've even got Reuben. And I think it was Reuben. He was the firstborn, but he was taken out of it. When you think about all of that, there's just so much into this study, and it leads you down paths.
Yeah.
like Matthew 24 is.
Bonnie, what did you say? I didn't hear what you said.
Now. No, ask my
All right. Well, so we can scroll down in here. It's going to start talking about the actual trees. So we saw this point about the men of wealth and renown here. City of palm trees. Boughs of totally beautiful or noble trees. One of the four
Can I
species
say
of.
something quickly? Sorry.
Sorry, what? Or is that Leah?
It's Leah. Sorry, I'm trying to make supper, and I had a thought, so I just wanted to mention that. That's what I love about that the Exodus with Monty Judah, because he talks about stuff that he knows from his brother Judah, things that we don't know, that they were having expectations of, and that they still have expectations of. So he was saying that, most people don't even know why they didn't accept Yahushua. And what their expectation of, what they're waiting for, is for their brother to start coming back, which they're seeing. And he said, so I asked my brothers in Israel, so what do you make of that? And what do you think if they say that it was Yeshua? And he said most Christians probably don't even know why they didn't accept Yahushua, because they thought he was going to come and fulfill all of it. And he only came and fulfilled the first part.
Yeah.
And when he does the restoration of bringing all of Israel back together again, then they're going to ask, who is the Messiah? And Ephraim is going to say, of course, that it was Yahushua. And that's when they're going to be jealous. It's
And Leah, I
if
think in one of
anybody has, sorry,
I think in one of his talks also he talks about that Israel is not the fig tree. So this is why I'm confused to the point, because he says it's the olive tree.
right?
This I'm still searching it out. So may
Yeah.
Yahuwah.
That
Those
part
are
is still over my head, but I
Yeah.
know the other part was so exciting when I heard him say that. I was like, wow, these are things we don't know unless we know somebody that knows Brother Judah, right? That knows
Or
the
by the
inside.
Rock HaKodesh. I mean, I had that understanding as well. So, or by the Rock HaKodesh, it's been revealed.
Yeah.
And
What was that,
Yeshua
Darla?
said too, he said, for those of you that can handle it, he was talking about how Eliyahu would come before the day of Yahuwah, and he said, for those of you that can handle it, Yohanan the Immerser is Eliyahu. So he's basically saying, I mean, I look at that as, if you are willing to believe, and Yeshua's explaining, yeah, I'm him. But if you want to go by the letter of the law and, your own interpretation, and then you're going to miss it. So, because he said, for those, those that have an ear, hear. And if for those who are willing to accept it, Yohanan is Eliyahu. So this is the day of Yahuwah coming, I'm here. So, I mean, it's true.
Did we lose Trish again?
Seems to have.
Okay. Hey,
Yeah,
Bonnie,
there's
can
just so
Go ahead.
much in this. You there?
Can we go,
You there,
Bonnie?
Bonnie?
Bonnie? I'm here, Teza.
I'm here
Am I
too.
the only one? But my computer's like doing really weird things, like sound going on, sound
Oh.
going off.
You right, Bonnie?
Yeah, I was just sneezing. Trying to make a cup of tea and have a handful of nuts so that I don't pass out.
Oh, yeah.
What are we doing?
I'd like to go to Romans 11, but you don't have to leave this window. Because we're going to talk about this olive tree, this thing that Leah was talking about. I want to start in verse 7.
Romans
I'm going
11.
to I'm going to share in the description a great teaching from Devoted to Yah's channel that will cover Romans 10 and 11, and it's phenomenal. If anybody wants to watch it, if anybody wants to get educated on this grafting in of the Christian church, this is where you're going to go to get it, Romans 10 and 11. But we're going to Romans 11, and I'm going to start reading in verse 7. Maybe verse 4. I'll make it 5. So therefore also at this present time a remnant according to the choice of favor has come to be. And if by favor, this is also what the word you would know as grace, if you do not have a restored name translation like Holy Scriptures. And if by favor it is no longer of works, otherwise favor is no longer favor. And if it is of works, it is no longer favor, otherwise work is no longer work. What then? Yasharel has not obtained what it seeks, but the chosen did obtain it, and the rest were hardened. As it has been written, Yahuwah has given them a spirit of deep sleep. So the spirit is from Yahuwah. Eyes not to see and ears not to hear unto this day. DeWitt also says, let their table become for a snare and for a trap. I need more Bonnie, please and thank you. DeWitt also says, I'm on verse 9. Let their table become for a snare and for a trap and for a stumbling block and a recompense to them. We talked about recompense yesterday. Let their eyes be darkened not to see and bow down their back ways. I say then, have they stumbled that they shall fall? Let it not be, but by their fall deliverance has come to the Gentiles to provoke them to jealousy. And if their fall is riches for the world and their failure riches for the Gentiles, how much more their completeness? For I speak to you, the Gentiles, and as much as I am an emissary to the Gentiles, I esteem my service, if somehow I might provoke to jealousy those who are my flesh and save some of them. For if their casting away is the restoration to favor of the world, what is their acceptance but life from the dead, chaim from the dead? Now, if the first fruit is set apart, the lump is also, and if the root is set apart, kodesh, so are the branches. And if some of the branches were broken off, and you, being a wild olive tree, have been grafted in among them, and came to share the root and fatness of the olive tree, Israel, Judah, the 12 tribes, do not boast against the branches. And if you boast, remember, you do not bear the root, but the root bears you. You shall say then, the branches were broken off that I might be grafted in. Tob, by unbelief they were broken off, and you stand by belief. Do not be arrogant, but fear. For if Elohim did not spare the natural branches, he might not spare you either. See then the kindness and sharpness of Elohim. The kindness and sharpness of Elohim. On those who fell sharpness, but toward you kindness. If you continue in his kindness, otherwise you also shall be cut off. And they also, if they do not continue in unbelief, shall be grafted in, for Elohim is able to graft them in again. For if you were cut out of the olive tree, which is wild by nature, and were grafted contrary to nature into a tob olive tree, how much more shall these who are Bonnie, right there? Verse 24 at the bottom. Thank you so much. How much more shall these who are the natural branches be grafted into their own olive tree? For I do not wish you to be ignorant of this secret, brothers, lest you should be wise in your own estimation, that hardening in part has come over Yasharel, until the completeness of the Gentiles has come in. That's when, until the completeness of the Gentiles has come in. And so Yasharel shall be saved, as it has been written, the deliverer shall come out of Zion, and he shall turn away wickedness from Jacob. And this is my covenant with them when I take away their sins. Might as well go on. Verse 28. Truly, as regards the Tob news, they are the enemies for your sake, but concerning the choice, they are beloved for the sake of the fathers. For the gifts and the calling, again, the calling, for the gifts and the calling of Elohim are not to be repented of. For as you also at one time disobeyed Elohim, but now have obtained compassion through their disobedience, so also these have now disobeyed. That's what we see today. These have now disobeyed, that through the compassion shown you, they also might obtain compassion. For Elohim has shut them all up to disobedience in order to have compassion on all. On the depth of riches and wisdom and knowledge of Elohim, how unsearchable his judgments and untraceable his ways. For who has known the mind of Yahuwah, or who has become his counselor, or who first gave to him, and it shall be given back to him. Because of him, and through him, and to him, are all to whom be esteemed forever. Amen.
That's so
Hallelujah.
beautiful. That is so beautiful. And while you were reading that, Teza, so obviously here, the olive tree is equated to Israel, right?
Yep.
Perhaps it came to me, this is just a thought, I'm just throwing it out there. Wasn't the first tree meant, the fig leaf in the garden, that's what they used to sow, to cover themselves?
Cover
What if the
themselves.
fig tree is prophetic Israel in prophecy, like prophetic Israel?
Yeah.
So when speaking of things yet to come, when speaking of what it will be, or how it will be used in the future, or whatever, maybe that's like that represents Israel in parables, or like illustrations, like a prophetic description of Israel, and the olive tree is the, what it's become, what it is now.
Yeah.
I just a thought.
I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying.
I think ultimately we need to not lose sight of the fact that Yahushua kind of explained, here's what you're looking for. And that there was an analogy to the fig tree.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's like, and two, he ended up with, who can fathom? I mean, they're unsearchable. We could search and search. We could talk about this forever. And we will know when we see him face to face. It's like, okay, are we going to believe this and do it? Because basically what he's saying is, don't become arrogant. Don't think that you've got it all, because if you are disobedient, you'll get cut off.
So do you
And
think that fits in, Trisha, with when he cursed the fig tree?
Yeah, because I've heard now in Spain they have, I don't know what it's called here, but there are figs that they're like the fake fig. It's not the real, it's not the one that tastes good.
There's the early fig, and then there's the late fig. One's called one. I heard somebody say one was the poor man's fig, and one was the rich man's fig.
Exactly.
And the rich man's fig is at the end, comes in the later of the year.
Yeah. So I think if I remember the parable right, is that Yeshua sees it blooming like it should have some figs on it, but it didn't, kind of like the clouds without water, it's like you're giving the appearance that you should have something to show and you don't, right? I'm just thinking of like, oh, master, didn't we do all this? He goes, get away from me, you who work lawlessness. Is like, if you're not being obedient if you're not doing what you're saying, if you're not putting forth fruit, then you're being disobedient, you're going to get cut off. And he curses it for being kind of hypocritical, the hypocritical fig tree.
Well, also when he talks, is it in Matthew 5 where he talks about the two different kinds of trees? The one that produces the tov fruit and then the other that produces the wicked fruit, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tree? I think it's trees.
It's all about what kind of fruit you produce, because you're going to produce something.
And you produce according to what you are, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
You cannot produce wicked fruit if you're a righteous tree.
Yeah.
Wow. Reading that Romans just sort of opened up so much, Darla. So thank you,
You're welcome.
Darla, sister today. And with Trisha explaining it, it was just, wow, okay. I'm going to get there.
And there's the name again. Everyone who calls on the name of Yahuwah shall be saved. Like, do you call on the name of Yahuwah? We call on the name of Yahuwah. We cry out to Yahuwah when we fall, when we scuff our knee, when we hurt our ankle, when we have need of him, when the finances aren't there, we call on the name of Yahuwah. We call for a rescue. We reach up to our Father, Abba, and we call on the name of Yahuwah. Save us. The name Joshua. How beautiful. I know somebody by the last name of Joshua, and I don't think she knows what her name means. But it means something beautiful, and it speaks volumes to me. Speaks volumes to me. This is a beautiful chapter for sure. And I'm going to share in the description those two videos that cover these chapters, Romans 10 and 11. It'll be from Devoted to Yah. I think it's something about the two houses of Israel. I think that's basically the name. It's a part 1, part 2, I think. And have we pretty much covered this, you guys? Do you think we're told? I don't want to keep Bonnie here all day. She needs a break. She needs a break. We need to keep her in prayer because
I need to tend to something. So I was going to say be right back, but if you're closing up.
Yeah, I think it's told. We've definitely been here over our 2 hours. We didn't even say we were just going to be here for 2 hours. We just said we were going to discuss the fig tree in Matthew 24, and I think that's what we've done today.
We've
So
done 3 hours. We've done 3 hours live and an hour and a half before we started. So.
Right. So it's been a long day, and we all need some rest. So
we did one verse in there. We're getting there to do it.
We did two.
Well,
Shalom,
it
everybody.
kind of reminds me of when who was
Shalom,
preaching
Sherry.
and the kid fell out of the window. I mean, it was like all night long. It was all day, all night, and the kid fell out the window, he fell asleep.
Right.
So it's good.
Yes.
He could go on forever, but yeah, no, I'm told.
Verses 32 to 35. So
Hallelujah.
4 verses. With 4 verses in Matthew 24.
We also made it
Yay.
to Judges 9, and I think we had reference to Daniel and Romans 10 and 11, a lot of Revelation and 2 Peter 1. So
Luke 21, Revelation
21,
3, 12, 14.
Judges,
Peter,
even Genesis.
Isaiah 28.
that's right. We've covered the book a little bit today. Yeah. So Yahuwah Barak, y'all. I'm going to close so everybody can get some rest for their Shabbat and be ready to start their new moon tomorrow. Yahuwah will be with y'all. We love you. And thank you for joining.
Love you guys.
Thank you, Dad. Thank you, Bonnie, Leah.
What did everybody want to do the day after that? Anything?
After what?
I
Take a
don't
nap?
know. So we've got today. I'm not going to say the pagan name of today. And then we've got the day after that. And then the day after that, Do we want to get together?
Yeah,
Okay, go ahead and close your
the
YouTube.
25th.
Is that the last day?
I
I'm
know
just
Day?
I'm gonna close YouTube, y'all. Let me just go do that.
Sure,